In the small town of Burkittsville, Maryland, student filmmakers Heather, Josh and Mike head into the woods to document the folklore tale of the Blair Witch. Unable to find their way out, the filmmakers are terrorized by forces unseen. The Blair Witch Project changed the landscape of cinema. It popularized a new form of horror movie, used the burgeoning internet to its advantage when marketing the film, and as a result became one of the most profitable films ever made. My name is Luke, and in the tent with me are Matt.
This is no redneck. No redneck is this creative.
And Westy. All the right movies are lost, angry in the woods, and no one is here to help us. That's our motivation. Hello and welcome to All the Right Movies, a podcast on classic and hit films as legendary and mythologized as the Blair Witch herself.
Yes.
Yeah.
And still with no map either.
No map, of course. We don't really know where we're going.
No.
Of course not.
But we won't leave teeth outside your tent either.
We'll see.
Well, this one is a long time coming. We're in Burkittsville to discuss the once-in-a-lifetime movie phenomenon that is the Blair Witch Project.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Big time, big stuff, excited.
Big one for you. 1 hour 21 minutes, horror
Yeah,
film.
1 hour 20. That's the sweet spot. Before we do that, we're going to haunt you with the spectre of Patreon. Much like the Blair Witch, there's no getting rid of that.
Wow, this is beautiful writing.
Yeah.
This is unbelievable. Well done. I love it. I love it.
You write that one?
You write that one.
We've added to our roster on Patreon, so if you think you've heard this one before, then think again and listen up. As always, the most recent 20 classic 80RM podcasts, just like this one, are available for all to listen to, and the rest are in our podcast archive. Now, this is episode 102.
Wow.
Yes.
Wowza.
Meaning that there are 82 podcasts just waiting to be discovered in our archive.
Yep.
And if you're a horror nut, like we are, we've covered them all. Halloween, The Shining, Texas Chainsaw, Poltergeist, Nightmare on Elm Street, and many, many more.
Yeah.
So if that sounds good to you, you can listen to the archive by signing up on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify. However, if you sign up to Patreon, you get the classic archive and a further 66 podcasts and counting that we've created exclusively for our Patreon supporters.
Yeah.
I feel like a bit of a QVC presenter. Sign up before midnight, and not only do you get the vacuum cleaner, you get the dustbuster and 3 additional attachments for those hard-to-reach areas.
Jason Statham at the start of Snatch. I'm starting Lock, Stock, sorry. Come on.
It's as big as my arm, and I wish it was as big as something else. Yes, so 66 podcasts, and that grows every month with brand new episodes of our exclusive podcasts, Double Feature, and our brand new movie review show, The Watch List.
Yes.
You can also vote for films we cover, ask us questions about the films that we're covering, and we'll answer them on the show. Now that's an offer not to be missed. Call it an early Christmas present for yourself.
Well, why not? Or for someone else.
Or for someone else.
More than you can shake a stick figure at.
And you don't have to go into the basement to get it either.
No.
Nope.
So go to patreon.com/all the right movies to sign up. Your support really does help keep us going, everyone. So if you can, we'd love your support. Thank you.
It really does
Yes,
help.
guys.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, now back to it. Westy,
Yeah.
why do you want to talk about the Blair Witch Project?
It was just at the right time for us, wasn't it? Because there was nothing like it.
Perfect.
We were of the age. Me and Matt worked at the cinema at the time, I believe. And it was, that poster that I keep coming back to. And it was impossible to ignore just from that statement. And a year later, the footage was found. Well, there's no way I'm not watching that then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
To be honest. The great thing about it was, we'll talk about it, but it was the birth of the internet marketing, how they did that. And is it a true story? Is it not? And you were so confused by it. It was all the days of reality TV was coming into play, and the blur and the lines between fiction and reality was really starting to be a social comment. And I think that's what this film does really well, is that you go in and you go like, this seems real. It's just got such a mystery to it, and the fact that it is so well made in that it's very tight but very loose. So you've got gaps to fill in, but it gives you the gaps and it knows where the gaps are. It's a very, very clever film.
Yes.
It's very well thought through. Everything on the screen is intentional. There's no fat on this whatsoever. Like we said, 1 minute, 1 hour, 21 minutes.
Yeah.
And there's not a minute of that is wasted. It's all a build of tension, a build of mystery, a build of fear, And when you plug your own gaps, the Blair Witch Project is your film, whether you like it or not, because you've created the hell that you see on the screen, because you don't see anything. You've got to create that yourself.
Yeah.
So it's a very personal film to everybody, and I think that's why it really works. And you've got to buy into this. A lot of people have turned around to me and said it's boring. See where you're coming from. It's because it's not affecting you because you're not letting it. I think that's the point. If you let this film in, you are done for. And I think that's why we should be talking about it. It's a very, very special film. It's really, really good for me. I love it.
Well, it's coming up to Halloween, of course, and we always try and find some time for a horror film during this time in October.
Yeah.
But it's the film's 25th anniversary this year as well.
Oh, Jesus, is it? 25th? Wow.
With, Dan Myrick on A Life in Movies, the film's co-writer, director, editor. So this feels like a natural fit, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Definitely.
excellent insights in that as well.
Yeah,
really, really
great.
good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So check it out if you haven't already.
Devil.
Little did we know that the Rewatchables guys were going to cover it this Halloween as well.
Oh, really?
Bastards,
All right, okay.
a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, well, it's fine. It's all good, isn't it?
Yeah.
A little bit of competition.
Of course it is.
Little friendly backslapping.
Yeah, of course. If you like us both, then, listen to those guys, listen to us. It'll be fun to compare and contrast.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
This film was one that I'd heard about and I was desperate to see. I remember reading a newspaper article about the hysteria surrounding the film sweeping through America, and obviously that kind of thing will always get me going.
Yeah, definitely.
Understandably gagging to see it. But often we don't get films over here until about 6 months after the US release, certainly in the late 90s.
That was the case then, yeah.
So I was stuck. But my best friend called up not long after I'd read this article and he said, I've got a copy of the Blair Witch Project on VHS. I was like, right, okay, brilliant. It was about 11 o'clock at night. I didn't care what time it was. I'm coming over and we're watching it immediately. It's happening.
Amazing. And that's why he's still your best friend.
Yeah.
Just for that one thing.
So I went over to his, we watched it. I was transfixed for 81 minutes. Loved it. Terrified, obviously. It was everything I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
But I didn't consider the walk back home for me after midnight.
Yeah. That's
The Blair Witching hour.
Yeah.
And then I heard somebody rustle in a bush as I passed it on the walk home, and geez, I darted home faster than the speeding bullet.
Fuck this.
But yeah, I mean, I've loved the film ever since. It's one of the great Hollywood stories. So can't wait to get stuck in.
Yeah.
And what about you, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, same for me. I was obsessed with the build-up to this film back then, and it is one where it depends so heavily on the context. As we've said, this was the days when the internet was nowhere near as accessible as it is now. It certainly wasn't on your phone with one swipe of your finger. So I've just become aware, I think like you, Luke, of these dribs and drabs of news and rumours coming through about this new horror film. But was it a film? Was it real? Is everything captured on camera? You know, the marketing we'll get into, because that was genius on a level we've never seen before. And yeah, like Westy, just that tagline on that poster, it's just like, fuck me, what's on that footage? I need to see that footage now. It's so starkly brilliant. But by the time it came out, obviously over here the cat was out of the bag, and yet somehow that didn't matter to me. And really, I suppose I was just setting myself up for a big disappointment considering the anticipation. And yet I wasn't. This absolutely delivered for me from first frame to the last. I can still remember the sold out screening I went to, and I was stood outside waiting to go in when the previous one came out, and I was just trying to gauge everyone's reactions. I was trying to gauge everyone's faces. Oh, how scared do they look? Do they look horrified? And really, there's been nothing like it since. And this really has been probably top 5 films for me that I've wanted to cover when we've started doing this podcast. So I'm delighted we're finally giving it the deep dive and going into the woods with it.
Lovely.
Okay, The Blair Witch Project was written, directed and edited by Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez, and produced by Greg Hale and Robin Cowie for Haxon Films, distributed by Artisan Entertainment. Filmed on location in the state of Maryland and released on the 14th of July 1999, it stars Heather Donahue, Joshua Leonard and Michael Williams. Only. Nobody else. Pack your bags, boys. We're headed to Burkittsville for the opening of The Blair Witch Project.
The beginning.
The film starts at day 1, naturally, and we're right there with it. We'll be headed into the woods soon, but first off, it's the introduction to our 3 campmates and the townsfolk of Burkittsville.
Campmates, is that a carry-on film? Ooh, our campmates. Woohoo! Ooh, that tense erect. Ooh. Sid James in there. Probably said out. Imagine it. The Sid James Project.
We made a mockery of it already. The Sid James Project.
Anyway, sorry.
Matt, do you want to start us off?
I mean, the film has to tread a fine line because it has to maintain this illusion of being real, but also every scene has to matter and mean something, and I think that's easy said than done. It's one of the most subtle things about it. So the introduction of 3 characters does have more to it than I think you may get on first view. I mean, first of all, Heather's introduction. Her list of essential reading includes How to Stay Alive in the Woods, which, if this was a regular scripted film, that would be so on the nose. Yeah. Because it's not a thing, you probably would read that and you would make a little joke out of it. But on repeat viewing, it's obviously something that comes laced with this horrible irony because, as she says, because you never know what's going to happen. I mean, just wait, Heather, then you'll find out.
Yeah, you would never anticipate this.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it does a really efficient job of not only setting up these guys, but also seeding in all the ways they're going to clash and why they fall apart so badly once they get lost. When Heather sees Josh outside, hey, it's mix of punctuality. Yeah. You think, I get it, that's in jest, but that's the kind of comment in a stressful situation where it's going to grate. And if that's the attitude you've got, it's going to cause a bit of a blow. So it's already a warning sign of Heather being maybe slightly overbearing, which really comes to fruition later on.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah. And then that introduction to Mike, and you realise Heather's never met this guy before. Yeah. They're going out to shoot for a whole weekend by themselves in the woods, and some of them don't even know each other. I mean, there's red flags all over the place already about the setup, and the fact that they planned it in such a short space of time is very impressive.
Yes. Well, just from there, they kind of all converge into Burkittsville, and I love the earnestness of Heather in the cemetery when they're filming the intro to their doc.
Yeah.
And it's just set up straight away that she's the driving force. She's got the impetus. She's got all the knowledge of the Blair Witch. She's the boss. But it's all very nice and jokey. They're kind of having a good time. They've got no idea what's in front of them. As the woods loom in the background behind them, that's great. And the thing I love about this scene is in rewatches, it's that we know what's coming. And they're, playing at being filmmakers and have a good time, all innocent. But that innocence is just about to be ripped clean away from them.
Yeah.
I love that looming over this scene all over the place.
I mean, in this scene, our whole introduction to the documentary was written by Donahue. She'd researched pagan symbols and things like Wicca mythology and just poured everything into the scene. And it really comes across. It's really genuinely well done. It's really genuinely well delivered.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be surprised if Donahue had actually read that book.
Yeah.
How to Survive in the Woods.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Because she said she did a good job of freaking herself out by looking at these kind of things, this pagan mythology, Wicca, all of this kind of thing to kind of get her amped up before she headed out into the woods.
You can tell, I mean, she's very serious about what she's doing.
Very serious.
Very focused.
Serious.
Very, very focused, yeah. And I'll go from the introduction, then we'll go to these really great talking heads interviews where we don't know who's real, we don't know who's planted, we don't know what's going on.
The Talking Heads interviews were as spontaneous as they could be, really. Yeah. The filmmakers planted an actor in amongst the people in the town. So the actors had to film everything and they had to wheedle out the plants, basically.
Right.
So they would ask people about the Blair Witch and people, like real people, would say, well, what are you talking about? And then when they found the plant, they would improvise this dialogue.
Yeah, that's
okay,
great.
Right.
Every single one of them is really interesting. Every single one of them gives you a tiny piece of the puzzle for you to put together. And then you get the ultimate piece of the puzzle where the guy tells you basically the end of the film.
Yeah.
He tells you what happens and why it happens. And it's when the kid's trying to shut her up, which is like, I'm just trying to tell a scary story, but it's not real.
It's not real. It is real. It is real.
Yeah.
I
it's
love
like that bit in Midnight Run. He's like, I'm going to bury him in the fucking swamp. No, I'm not. That's exactly what it reminds us of. It's so good. But it's like, well, that's the whole point. It's the kids is the innocence and doesn't want to hear about it. And we want to hear about it. And just trying to shut her up. Just trying to say, don't watch the rest of the film. It's not true, or is it true, or is it not? And it's just set up in that one tiny moment, which I think is just completely accidental, if I'm honest. And then we'll get Mary Brown.
Whoa.
Oh, fucking yes, man. There's the American flag. Our gate's made out of sticks.
Yeah.
She looks terrifying.
She looks like a witch.
She looks like a witch on purpose, I think. Is she holding the Bible? And it's like really weird. She's holding something. And it's like it's insinuating to be some kind of book of whatever. And she starts telling this scary story. And you're like, that's it. That's the Blair Witch for me. That's it personified. And her spirit then lives on with them. It kind of haunts them all the way through. And you have her image burnt into your head. Whenever anything's going wrong, you imagine it's her. I do anyway. I imagine it's that
Right.
same facial features and that same kind of silhouette in an old woman whose feet don't touch the ground. Like, it is building a character in your mind, whether you like it or not. And that's the genius at the start of the film, because it does give you the bad guy, but you've got to kind of piece it together. You've got to make it yourself. It gives you the plaster scene, but you've got to make it.
You've got to build
Do you know
it.
what I mean?
Yeah.
I think what they do with Mary Brown is they give you that skeletal structure and you kind of make that into the bad guy. It's really well done.
It is. Yeah, it's brilliant.
And although it's probably the smallest cast we've ever covered, there were a few roles that had to be filled in. And because the budget was low, they just put up posters in universities to recruit students, one of whom is Patricia Ducoux, who played the part of Mary Brown.
Yeah.
What would the poster say? Do you look scary as shit?
Are you a student but are 60 years old? Yeah.
Is that book just what you're studying?
Yeah, I think it's left open to your interpretation that Mary Brown could be the Blair Witch.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
She had a fur, like a horse fur.
Oh,
Horrible.
it's horrible.
So, day one done. Things seem relatively safe so far.
Oh, yeah, everything's fine now.
Yep.
Daybreak on day 2 leads us into the woods, where we catch up with some very friendly chaps fishing.
Yep.
Matt, over to you.
Yes. I want to talk about this conversation I have with the fishermen, because there's something really comforting about these guys. You just know this is their daily activity every day of the week. That's all they ever do, these two. They go out fishing together, and they've got this really easy and relaxed chemistry with each other, where it's that amiable bickering, just interrupting each other. The one on the right tries to tell the story of what he saw once. The other one's, you're full of it. Probably drinking that day. I wasn't drinking that day. You just know this is the kind of argument they do every single day. So it is quite funny, but there's this underlying tension to it. The one on the right fully believes these woods are haunted. You damn fool kids will never learn. And the other one
Classic.
is, well, I've heard stuff, but I don't really believe it. It's bullshit. But I think his performance tells a different story. I think you can tell in his body language, he can tell there's a tremor of doubt in his voice. I don't believe that he believes that for 1 minute, but he's trying to convince himself that there's nothing out there. Because for something he doesn't believe, he knows that story of Robin Weaver inside and out. Yeah. And I just think his nervous performance really contrasts to the other fisherman who's so down the line. You know, yeah, it's true. Anyone worth the salt knows it's true. So there's this nice contrast between them, and it's one of these scenes in retrospect, it sends a chill down the spine once you realise this is the last time anyone saw these three kids alive. You know, the fishermen are the last people they will ever see.
Yeah. Some really great double takes in there as well, when he's just waiting for him to stop talking, and he's just
Yeah.
brilliant, really funny.
Yeah, really natural. Like when Heather asks him if she's got his consent to have him on film, and he says, "Well, I don't know anything about that."
Yeah, he's like, I guess that's okay. Yeah, okay.
Great.
You have to say yes or no, sir. And straight from that, we'll go into possibly, the introduction to the cemetery was really good, and an introduction to the documentary, and you can get where it's coming from. But Jesus Christ, is she a massive piece of ham here? It's so
That's
hammy.
great.
Just the dialogue that's used, just the language that's used, when like the stench was thick with like death, and they were all here, like the vultures were there, and then the bodies were removed without anyone knowing where that came from, in Coffin Rock, in this story, and it's just really putting it on thick. And it's like they're tearing out the intestines and all this kind of like back. She's trying to make it as scary as possible. She's trying to make it as hammy as possible, as cheesy as possible, to just nail this story home. You can't tell it and just say, oh, yeah, there's some 5 guys were tortured here. It's probably something to do with the Civil War, I would imagine. I don't know. And then they disappear without a trace, and there was this and there was this. And it's a great bit of footage, because it puts you on the back foot, because you think it's going to be about something else. And all this is about is just losing hope. That's all this film's about, really, is losing hope in where you're going and what you're doing. And this kind of story and the way that it's told puts you on the back foot, because you just start thinking about something else opposed to your own survival. You start buying into the fable. You start buying into the stories, and you forget that you need to look after yourself, because you're more important than whatever happened there. And I think she makes the story more important. She makes the project more important. And you can see that the way that she talks to the camera is more important than the way that she talks to Josh and Mike. And you get that at this point. You see where her priority is, and the priority is the documentary. The priority is the footage, and she forgets about herself and forgets about the people that she's with. And I think that's why this is so important, especially the Coffin Rock story, because she forgets where she is, and she just forgets to be safe.
Yeah. I really love the contrast between Donahue as performing, like you were saying, Westy, quite hammy, and then her naturalistic, like behind the camera kind of thing.
It's almost like a big sigh, isn't it, when she's finished? Like, right, that must be normal again. Right,
It's so pretentious when she sits down, so pronounced with the book open.
Yeah, like Ron Burgundy or something. It's just like, it's a Brian Fantana in the field.
We're rolling right now? I don't believe
I don't believe. But yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful performance from her. And yeah, it does show that contrast, and it shows how good of an actress she really is.
It really does.
Personally, yeah.
Well, I'm picking up on day 3, where a lot happens, but not much happens. They talk about Mike's chest hair. We see his nipples. Disgusting.
Yes. Bizarre, yeah.
Yeah. They look for a cemetery. They cross a river over a log, kind of standard in the woods stuff. They see some rocks stood up on top of each other as well. So it's all pretty innocuous stuff. None of it is kind of out of the ordinary if you're in the middle of the woods. Yeah, alarming. Maybe the rocks, but you could pass that off as just kids playing or whatever.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But it's the mountain sense of unease that's happening here. Coursing throughout all of this activity is a building tension of being lost. And it's relatable because I'm sure we've all been in a situation where you're kind of out of your comfort zone and you start to spiral and begin to fear the worst. And then when you look back, you think how stupid you were at the time.
Yeah.
Well, that's where these 3 here are at the moment, the irrational thoughts. Yeah. Heather is trying to keep it tight. She's the leader. She's trying to instill confidence in her troops. But the mask is beginning to slip. And it's that anticipation as a viewer at this point. It's all been kind of pretty much PG so far. We know that something bad's going to happen sooner or later. And the film really holds its nerve and doesn't throw out cheap jump scares in this day where nothing really much happens.
Yeah.
And I think playing the long game, I think that really helps the film.
Yeah.
So nothing concrete to be worrying about so far, but it's all starting to get a little uneasy for our tiresome trio.
Just a little bit.
The director.
The 2 masterminds behind the film are Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez, rookie directors who are pulling triple duties here. The story of the screenplay is coming later, but first they work as directors.
Yeah.
And, they set out to make a really scary horror film, obviously. But I don't think they could have anticipated it to be this good.
No.
I mean, it's just all things that make for a great horror movie. It's 101 stuff, really, but it's so effective, and I think that works in the film's favour. It's going down to the basement, it's being isolated in the woods, an unseen force, supernatural. It's classic horror movie storytelling. Like you said at the top, Westy, and I agree with you, no filler, no fluff, no room for that at all. It all boils down to pure terror.
And it's really point of view as well, which makes a difference because you are there.
Yes, that's true. Yes, that's right, yeah. Once the first 15 minutes of exposition are out of the way, it's open season.
Yeah.
You have no idea what's going to happen.
No, you don't.
You're so scared of the sun going down as well. You're so scared of the nighttime. Like you just when they have the daytime conversations, it's like it's going to be dark soon. And I'm like, it's so excruciating.
What fresh hell is this?
Yeah,
It
exactly.
gets worse. Every night is worse than the last.
And I think what helps is that there's a good percentage of the screen time afforded to just blackness. It's those moments in the tent when the cameras are rolling and we can hear the noises in the distance, but we can just see darkness on the screen.
Yeah.
And I'm always desperately trying to find images in that darkness, and it seems as though it just holds for minutes at a time.
Yeah.
But that keeps me firmly locked into the screen. Amazingly effective stuff. And even the opening title card, in October 1994, 3 student filmmakers disappeared in the woods near Burkittsville, Maryland, while shooting a documentary. A year later, their footage was found. Boom.
Yep.
Simple, effective, terrifying.
It's one of the best blurbs about any film ever.
It really is.
I can't think of anything better than that, to be honest.
No.
And the word Haxan is so terrifying to me, and I have no idea why. It's because of this. It's just the way it just shakes.
Yeah,
the way that the
does.
scan
The
from the
title card
16 mil
shakes,
film
doesn't it?
and like all the title cards just shake. Like the Blair Witch Project, it's just a fucking beautiful font, and it's just basic, but it's just got that vibration to it.
Yeah,
and you're like,
just a little wobble.
yeah, it's fucking
Just
brilliant.
unsettling.
I love that like that, mate. I'm straight into
it's
that.
great.
Yeah.
Well, Haxan Films was the directors and Greg Hale's production company. It's a reference to the 1922 Swedish silent horror film Haxan.
Oh, right. So terrifying word anyway.
Yeah, of course.
So that's about witchcraft, isn't it?
It is about witchcraft,
yeah.
yes, you're right. Yeah. And the working title for the film was The Black Hills Project. It then turned into the Blair Witch Tapes, Project, obviously.
Yeah.
The name Blair came from Blair High School, where Sanchez's sister went.
Right.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, just incredibly effective stuff, and just a vein of pure terror through this film, the likes of which I've rarely seen.
Yeah. I think what they've done is, it's the classic Pandora's box story, isn't it? It's like,
Love it.
if you open this,
Bad things will happen.
Bad things are going to happen, but you can't help but open it because of that blurb. You can't help but dive in and go, right, well, I'm just going to have to experience this. And the way they ramp up the claustrophobia, the way that this is edited, that we'll get into, the way that this is shot, it's just like, make sure it's in focus, make sure it's exposed. This is the only film, I think, when I was thinking watching it again this morning, it's the only film that I don't care how it's shot.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't look at it from that point of view. I don't think, oh, well, what lens is that? That's a really interesting angle. Or I don't really give a shit.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It's pure content. That's what this film is. It's pure content. And you want to try and suck as much of that content into your brain as possible to try and figure out what's going on and how to get out of there. But that's the genius of these two guys that do not give you enough information to feel comfortable.
No.
And they give you enough information to feel uncomfortable. And then they take a map away.
Yeah.
And you're like, are you taking the fucking piss? And then you start seeing stick formations, you start seeing rocks, you start seeing, as we'll go into, teeth. Like, what are you doing to us? Fucking hell. And you start spiraling into your own nightmare. My daughter's 13, right? I'd rather show her A Nightmare on Elm Street than I would show her The Blair Witch Project. Because then at least she knows who the bad guy is.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? She'll probably go, Dad, how does that end? Where's the closure? There isn't any. You've just got to deal with it.
Yeah.
And you've just got to kind of live with it. And it stays with you as if you've witnessed something. And I think that's what they've done really, really well. It's to their absolute testament, because they know that. They give you enough questions, and really good questions. Not shitty, cheesy ones. Really good questions where you want to find the answers to them. And then they don't give you the answers, but at the same time, you're quite happy with not revealing the answers. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't leave you frustrated.
Doesn't at
You're
all.
entertained by the questions, and you're happy that you haven't got the answers. And that's very rare, especially in cinema, for that to be set up and knocked down as well as they've done it. I think this is just an absolute product of evolution throughout the filmmaking process.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I think that they've went, this can be really interesting if we'll go here.
Yeah, we never thought about going this direction.
Exactly.
Let's try that.
Let's keep that out. Don't put that in. I think that they would have had lots written down that they just went, you know what, fuck this, I'm not putting any of this in. You're going to have to figure it out for yourself. But it's absolutely based on the primal fear of being alive and losing hope and not being able to find your way back. And then they put a supernatural element on top of that. People forget that this is a film about survival, basically.
Yeah.
It's like Alive, but then you throw a fucking witch in it. What? You know what I mean? It's like, that's even worse. They don't need that on top of what's happening already. It's not what they've put into this film. It's what they've left out that makes it really important.
I agree. Yeah, it's the double horror of being lost and being fraught and losing hope, but also being stalked by a fucking witch.
Yeah, imagine, right? You're lost. Even if it's just Hamsterley Forest, which is lovely. And we're camping out, and we know where we are. And the car is even 10 feet in front of us, right? Let's just imagine we're camping next to the car park, and it's 2 in the morning, and you hear a baby crying.
Yeah.
Fuck that. Out. Out. I don't care. I'm out. I'm so surprised none of the cast, which we'll talk about, I'm so surprised none of them had a fucking heart attack.
I know. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I just think it's really ballsy. And part of the reason I admire it is they just had this one great idea and they ran with it. And I find that really quite inspiring, because they didn't worry about having very little money. They didn't worry about not having any special effects. They didn't worry about not having a proper soundtrack or cinematographer. They just thought, this idea can really work, and we're going to stick to our guns with it. And yeah, if you have that other stuff, that's great. But sometimes all you need is the one idea and that willingness to just do it and see if you can pull it off. And I think they do that with aplomb. And there's so many decisions in this where it's about them holding their nerve to not show anything. And I know they did at one point want to show something, but it didn't work out, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But apart from that, to just go, no, not going to show a thing. We're not going to explain anything. We're not going to have a jump scare, because how many found footage films since this end with something jumping at the camera?
Yeah.
And that's the last thing you see. And that would have been so easy for this film to do as well, but they've stuck to that single principle. Everything is ambiguous. This might not be happening. Actually, this might be in the heads. This could be coincidence. Everything's in the mind. And I just know if that was me in their position as a director, I don't think I could have held my nerve in the same way that these two did. I'd have been going, oh, maybe we should show something, maybe just at the end, maybe just a little thing, a little glimpse, but no, they've gone, no, not a tiny shot of anything. And despite that, the film is just filled with this unrelenting dread. And, you know, we'll cover the ending obviously when we get there, but all I'll say about that for now is for them to hang their entire ending on one line of dialogue from over an hour earlier, that takes balls. I mean, that's holding your nerve, and then some to go, this will work, just trust in it.
Just stick with it.
Stick with it, trust the audience will remember. So yeah, I've got nothing but praise for these guys, because with their one shot, they hit the bullseye, and they've made a film that in this genre, it puts their names up alongside the greats like Craven and Kubrick, Romero, Carpenter, and that's just not bad going for two complete nobodies.
No.
Because audiences need a payoff usually. They want to see something. What the fuck is it?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
Nope.
Yeah.
Love
It's
that.
like just giving somebody a starter and they've got to create their own main. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not cooking that for you. Do it yourself. Oh.
Well, I think it's about time that we had our first Patreon question.
Let's do it.
As mentioned at the top, if you submit your questions for the films that we're covering, we'll answer them on the show. And our first one comes from Jamie Beckett. Hello, Jamie.
Hello, Jamie.
Hello, Jamie.
Jamie starts off with this. Check it out.
Oh.
Guys, you keep delivering the goods week after week. Brilliant listening.
What a sweetheart. Thank you, mate.
Oh, thanks, Jamie.
Thanks, Jamie.
Yeah.
He says, the Blair Witch Project is possibly as lo-fi as it comes, but had a huge impact. What other films punched above their weight with their impact given the production costs?
Great question.
Big time. Matt,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts?
I think this question, it does automatically make you gravitate towards horror films, because I think this is what
does.
horror films can do, probably better than any other genre. So I'm sure we're going to have some crossover, but Night of the Living Dead really stands out for how that, it created the genre, really.
It really did, yeah.
Texas Chainsaw, I think, would obviously fall into this category as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And the other one, slightly different, because obviously, once I mention it, you'll know obviously the director gives it a certain cachet, but should be remembered, Psycho was really made on the cheap for a Hitchcock film.
Yeah,
that
it
was really
yeah.
low. He shot it like he was shooting an episode of his TV show, really.
It was a massive gamble for Hitchcock, that film.
Massive gamble, that.
All
and
on
then,
a 50mm lens as well, if anyone's interested.
Yeah.
Everyone is.
There you go. One
There you
lens.
go. Yeah. And then with all that, another one that just changed the genre forever. So yeah, I think Psycho's worth a mention as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I try to move away from the horror genre, but like Matt said, it's really hard to do
It is
that.
difficult.
Saw, 1.2 million and made 103. Terrifier series, that was just come out. I think when
Let's
that
keep
needs
it
a
current,
mention.
Westy. I love it.
Yeah, that's really impressive with what they've done there, because they have stuck to the guns, and I didn't expect anything like that to become so mainstream. So that really just deserves a round of applause, to be honest. That's incredible work. Night of the Living Dead I've got written down. But outside the genre, I think the likes of Rocky, people forget that was just on a shoestring, and
Great.
that brought lots back. Juno was made on next to nothing.
All right,
And
yes.
brought a lot back. 7.5 million,
Great cast.
returned 232. It's just fucking brilliant.
Bloody hell.
And the one for me that stood out as soon as I saw the question was Mad Max, because I think
Right.
that to
Very
me
nice.
is the ultimate low
It is
budget.
lo-fi.
How the fuck do you do this? And it became really popular. 350 grand, and it brought back 100 million. And he just knew how
about
to
it.
crash cars, and it's George Miller's first film. I think it's really important. That is a really low budget film that nobody could ever make again. To me, that's the one that stands out.
Yeah, it is really low budget.
Yeah.
I was a similar kind of thing, Westy. I was trying to stay away from the horror genre, but the first one that I came to was Halloween.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Classic.
Yeah.
$325,000 budget, and 75 grand of that was on Donald Pleasance.
Money well spent, let's be honest.
Oh, well, yeah, of course.
The blackest eyes.
The devil's eyes.
The devil's eyes.
I was going to go into Quint there, a doll's eyes.
Devil's eyes.
So $250,000 to make the film look as good as it does, and that's because Carpenter spent pretty much the entire budget on cameras and lenses, and it paid off. 70 mil at the box office. But also, like Blair Witch, it spawned a brand new subgenre of horror in the slasher genre. Amazing. Outside of that, I looked at documentaries, and Catfish was made for 30 grand. It returned 3.5 million, spawned a TV show, and added a new phrase into the cultural lexicon.
Yeah, Catfish. Yeah.
Right, yeah. It's a good
Huge.
shout.
There you go, Jamie. Let us know what yours are, and that goes for everybody listening.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
absolutely. So if
Thanks for the question, Jimmy.
There. Yeah.
Going back to the directors, I think what comes across in the research is that the filmmakers were very considerate towards the actors. They made no secret of how uncomfortable the shoot would be, but their safety was of paramount importance. Myrick said that their mandate was shoot everything, react naturally, give us lots of screaming and yelling, and then run in this direction. Brilliant.
Nice.
That's perfect
For
direction.
81 minutes.
And producer Greg Hill was instrumental in the shooting schedule, location scouting, and logistics of the shoot. Around 3 weeks prior to filming, the production team went out into the woods and marked all of the areas where the actors would camp overnight, so everything was kind of pre-planned.
Yeah.
Fantastic
stuff.
They're digging in the wrong place.
Well, Hill had been in the army and he used that experience during production. He introduced the notion of GPS devices for the actors and taught them to find and follow a point on it. And then once they reached that point, they would find basic rations, which diminished as the week progressed, instructions for the day, and 3 film canisters for each of them, which contained stage directions for their character for that day. And it gave a skeleton outline of their conflict, and nobody got to see the other person's notes, so they were constantly surprising each other.
That's genius, that, isn't it? What a way to make something.
Yeah.
Like Heather's directions for one day would say, just head south, no matter what you were told by the other two, just head south.
Right.
Don't listen to anybody. And then in conflict to that, Josh's notes would be, you've been going south all day, you need to intervene at some point.
Right.
So just this whole organic process, they had the structure, but it was just up to them to see how it played out. It's entirely up to you. Incredible stuff.
And I think it's testament to them knowing when to do that, because you don't do it straight away. You let the tension build.
Yeah.
If your note for Josh is like, well, you've got to intervene at some point, you've just got to wait until that point where it's almost about to snap, then you intervene.
Yeah,
So-
exactly. That's on the actors to be able to decide
Exactly.
when the best time to do that is.
And while the actors were out in the middle of nowhere, Sanchez, Merrick, and Hale were not far away, lurking in the undergrowth in camouflage. Absolutely ridiculous, making things as uncomfortable as possible for the actors. So the cast knew they were out there, but they had no idea where they were.
But on a few occasions, the directors would break from proceedings and go out to the trio. Sanchez said, well, sometimes they just needed a pat on the back or to hear what was wrong or to voice the complaints about the other actors.
Yeah, you need to let off some steam.
Yeah.
And it wasn't as back to nature as you'd expect, or kind of like the mythology of the film has been built up.
No.
Donahue said, we didn't have to skin squirrels or anything like that. She said it was kind of like a daily use park. We sometimes had to stop shooting for families going past on their bikes.
Right.
Yeah. Really?
Which doesn't feel like that at all, does it?
Doesn't feel like that at all. No way. Oh, sorry, excuse me.
Oh, sorry, don't mind us.
Yeah. You hear a little bell ringing somewhere. What the fuck is that?
So 2 rookie directors using guerrilla tactics, reaching heights very few could even dream of.
You know?
The cast.
The main cast on the Blair Witch Project, and for over an hour we only see 3 faces.
Mm-hmm.
To cast the film, Sanchez and Myrick put an ad in Backstage magazine that read, improvisational feature film. We're holding a casting call for the Black Hill Project, non-union with pay, travel and meals. Shooting in October, November for 3 weeks in Maryland, seeking men and women 18 to 25 with natural look. Extremely challenging role to be shot under very difficult conditions.
Well, at least they're honest.
Yeah, very honest.
Yeah.
They filtered out hundreds of hopefuls before settling on the trio in the film.
And casting took place in Orlando and New York in 1996, and there was a sign in the hallway that read, if you get this role, you will be subject to uncomfortable physical situations, you will never be in harm's way, you will be outdoors most of the time. If this is not your thing, please don't audition.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
They did not want to waste their time.
No.
I mean, double hammering it home.
Yeah, I didn't think it was that obviously put out, to be fair, at this stage.
Yeah, well, so they obviously had a clear idea in their mind of what they were going to do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And they can't get out there, get 2 days into it, and someone like flakes out like, oh, sorry, this isn't for me.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
You're right. You haven't got the money for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The sessions were heavily based around improv skills. When actors walked in, there were no introductions, just straight into it. If you weren't dialed into the improv straight away, you were out on your arse.
Yeah.
And their brief was simple. You've served 10 years of a 25-year sentence in prison for murder. You're up for parole. Why should you be set free? Go. Brilliant. And to keep them on their toes, Myrick and Sanchez would then change things around mid-audition and point to a pipe in the room and say, that pipe's been leaking for a few weeks now, and if the actors were smart, they'd start playing the role of a plumber and dial into that side of the improv.
Right.
So they really needed those strong improvisational skills to be front and centre immediately.
It's really challenging, that, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the poster girl, literally the poster girl, Heather Donahue. Now, she gets an unfair rap, I think it's fair to say.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, very fair to say.
Definitely.
Yeah. Just fantastic.
Yeah, she is. I just find that unbelievable. In a low-budget film like this, non-union actors, the majority, if not all of the cast, are subpar at best. But not any of them for that matter. But Donahue just completely understood the brief and threw herself into it. You know, you ask me to go into the woods for 8 days and get terrorised. No thanks.
No, not at all.
No.
No, thank you.
I really like that she is the dominant force in the film, and she basically kicks the arses of Josh and Mike for about 6 days before she breaks down.
Yeah.
She needs to be the dominant force because she's the director, and she absolutely takes the bull by the horns. This is the way we're going. We'll be at the cemetery in an hour. I'm the director. I'm shooting this footage all day. Absolute courage in her convictions. And then we'll explain later, but this is all her own dialogue as well.
Yeah.
She had so much space to create this character, and this is what she come up with, which I think is incredible. I don't think it's too far removed from Donahue as a real person, like her real character.
No.
Yeah, I don't think that either. Yeah.
But then in contrast, the moments where she's freaking out later on, it's an incredible decline into breakdown.
Yeah.
The moment when Josh is shouting at her, the moment when she finds Josh's teeth, the iconic monologue, and the hysteria in the house at the end scene. It's unbelievable to think that this is the same person that knew it all at the start of it.
Yeah, so confident and cocksure. Yeah.
I think it's one of the great horror movie performances,
Agreed. Yeah.
contrary to what a lot of people think.
Yeah.
I would have thought it's probably the best final girl that nobody talks about.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree at all with that. She's great. Cass and Heather was the real gem in the crown for the film. Originally, it was a male part, but she came in and blew Myrick and Sanchez away. Her response to why should you be let out of prison after 10 years was, I don't think I should.
Brilliant. Yeah.
She said she was a terrible person, she was a baby killer, and the inmates were throwing pacifiers, which made her even more demented.
Wow.
Just thought like that on the spot, which is incredible. There wasn't a pre-brief. She got this information as she was going into audition.
Yeah.
Right,
You're up for parole. Incredible.
Yeah.
And Donahue was the only one who flipped it around, and the filmmakers loved her because of that. They were also a little scared of her, which was the perfect energy for the part. And Sanchez said that she was able to go to a place that none of the other actresses were going to.
After finding out roughly what was expected of her, Donahue said that the reaction of loved ones was that I shouldn't go into the woods with some guys I didn't know, which is really good advice.
Yeah,
and
really good point.
Our mum wanted her to say, our mum wanted social security numbers. That sounds like something my mum would do. It's not one thing, it's your mother.
Yeah.
And our friends pitched in to make it sure, take a knife, look after yourself.
Yeah.
Like,
Wow.
everyone was really concerned about her welfare.
It is fair enough. You're going,
It is
it's
fair
just
enough,
you,
yeah.
one woman, and all these blokes.
Yeah.
Total strangers, and you're going out in
Yeah.
the middle of nowhere. No?
Yeah.
No,
Don't
no
be
thanks.
silly.
Yeah. No.
The original character names for the cast were Jane, John, and Bill, but the actors suggested that they use their real names to make the improv more natural, and obviously the directors agreed. It's something that they came to regret, especially Heather, considering the backlash she got for her performance.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people couldn't detach from the film as reality, and
Yeah.
Heather was not only poster girl for the film, but became the poster girl for the backlash.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's just changed her name now, hasn't she?
She has changed her name,
Has,
yeah. That's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, more unbelievable, she won a Golden Razzie Award for Worst Actress for her troubles.
Bollocks.
That is very harsh.
Absolute
That's
bollocks.
got nothing to do with her performance.
It's not.
It hasn't. It's got everyone's reactions to who she is and how she's reacting to things and how annoying
Yeah.
that persona would be. But if you're terrified, I'm sorry, but you're annoying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
End of
course.
story.
Yeah.
If I'm terrified, I'm an absolute piece of shit, and I'm a piece of shit normally. But if I'm really scared, I'm a fucking arsehole. But that doesn't make her a bad actress.
No, she doesn't.
Definitely not.
I mean, what a bunch of arseholes. The Golden Raspberries.
Yeah.
Just make them defunct. Just
Yeah.
pointing
Yeah.
out people's bad points. Piss
Yeah,
off.
it's shit. It does nothing for anybody.
No,
really, apart
it's
from the
awful.
people who
Really
vote for it.
mean-spirited.
Yeah, it's crap.
Heather Donahue retired from acting in 2008 and became a professional and very successful medical marijuana grower.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
she's
that's right.
found a
Now you're
niche.
talking. Yeah. Now you're talking. Josh.
So a divisive performance for some, but I think we'll all agree, right here, a magnificent one.
Yes,
Iconic
absolutely.
performance.
Now it's over to the biggest fraidy cat in the cast. Matt?
Yeah.
Not Matt.
No.
Mike.
Well, also Matt, to be fair. It is also
Yeah.
me. Mike, he's probably the most sympathetic, and that's despite the fact he does take the map and kick it into the river.
Yeah.
And I just find him really relatable as well, and not just because I also have sporadic chest hair. Bolivia, right there. I'll send you a picture later.
No, don't.
I've got a really good picture of me and you at V2000.
Yeah, well, I've got my top off, yeah.
Yeah, I've got that.
Talking about camping.
That's just for the ladies
Sign up to
usually,
Patreon,
Matt.
I'll send that in.
Yeah. Mike, though, I think for the most part, he's the one who seems to have his head screwed on more than the other two. Like, when they first see the noises at night, he point blank refuses to come out of the tent to investigate, and I just
brilliant.
think, too fucking
I'm not going
right.
down there.
Sensible, man. Absolutely
brilliant.
not. And he's the one who first brings up his unhappiness with Heather's leadership. He's not sure if he trusts her. But I think probably the most important thing he does, he just brings these nice little moments of humour. I mean, it's obviously not the place for goofy slapstick or gags, but he just brings these elements that momentarily lighten the atmosphere for the three of them. That little bit where he plants the stick in the ground and he does the little pause with.
The lean and paused.
Yeah, the lean and pause. Yeah. That's
lovely.
just a nice moment.
Show them what the stick's for.
Yeah, that's really good to know.
Yeah,
It's really good stuff like that. I mean,
Yeah.
he has ones where it's almost like Martin Freeman or John Krasinski in The Office when he gives the little comical glances to camera. Like when Heather, like at the beginning, kind of after the first day, Heather says, "I've not been getting you lost." And Josh asks, well, would that be a full of shit statement? And he just moves the camera to Mike, who just gives the little nod to camera like, yes, that's a full of shit statement.
Great.
Or his reaction when Heather says, I'm very pleasantly surprised by our little Mikey. And again, they move the camera to him and he's like, ugh, what do you call me? So he does have those moments, and he gets one of my favourite lines, which is funny, but it's infused with a little bit of panic and fear. And it's, they've started to hear noises at night and they're talking about them. And he says, there's people out here messing with us. I'm not going to play with that. And Heather responds, well, how do you know those people? Well, even if it wasn't, I'm not going to play with that either. Which, that's, like, see, you kind of laugh, but like he's got genuine panic in his voice because it's a really good point. So when he starts to lose it, I really feel his anguish. I feel his desperation when he's the one that's trying to keep the spirits up towards the end. When Josh has disappeared, he's the one that's trying to keep Heather positive in the situation. So I just find him very relatable, very likeable, and he's the one I probably feel the sorriest for in this situation.
I think the fact that he's leaving his parents' house as well.
Yeah.
And still
He's
lives
just
with
a
his mum
kid.
and dad.
Yeah.
And he's just completely innocent in all this. And it's just the way he complains about the filming.
Yeah,
And he does it very early on.
he does.
Very early on. Like, we're making a film about a witch. Like, get the fucking camera out of my face.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the different dynamics, the different levels of mania that the cast are at as the film progresses.
Yeah.
When Josh has his freak out, Mike's the voice of reason. Mike goes on this aggressive rant. Josh is the one who's trying to level things out. And it's the same with Heather as well when she has a freak out. It's great, like really great balance of performances across
It's a
the
great
three.
dynamic, isn't it? And Michael Williams wanted the gig because he was good at improv and loved camping. That is perfect,
Brilliant.
isn't it? What more do you need? In the audition, he said he did his best Morgan Freeman from Shawshank.
Oh, amazing.
I need to hear that.
That's going to do it for anybody, that, isn't it?
Anyway, I mean, you know, Merrick, get him back on the phone and see if we can get that audition tape.
Williams wasn't the sound man, so he was given a sound crash course by the filmmakers. How to connect the wires, how to make the audio clean, how to use the DAT, that kind of thing. Just slapdash, haphazard. How did they know it was going to work?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So 2 for 2 in the cast, a great performance from Williams.
Yeah.
Finally, cameraman extraordinaire. Of course, I'm talking about Westy, not Josh. Westy, over to you.
I'm going to go for Josh.
Yes.
Obviously, last one left. But a voice of reason, I think. Probably the most mature of the cast. The one who's got a little bit more kind of get up and go. When I say maturity, I mean he crashes as fast as he should do and then rises from it. He doesn't let it kind of sit with him. He kind of tries to move on. But I think the performance is absolutely fantastic because it's somebody that you don't want to lose. You want someone like that.
Solid,
who
isn't he?
has this kind of outlook. And he feels really safe for me as a character. Like, out of any of the three of them, I would rather be out with Josh than I would be out with the other two. I think he's kicking himself all the way through that he's trusted Heather so much that he has.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem. He's like, I should have just fucking... He doesn't look at the car. They've left the water on top of the car. When they walk away from it, it's all very lackluster. And I think he beats himself up throughout the whole film thinking, I should have done more. I could have taken a hold of this. I've got to be at work at 9 o'clock tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's got a job.
Yeah.
He's very responsible.
His girlfriend's waiting for him.
Yeah.
His girlfriend's waiting for him. And he says, look, if they're not looking for us, they're going to figure it out and we're going to get sorted out. This is the fucking facts of it. And he tried to bring reality into this situation of absolute fantasy where everyone else is talking about, screaming babies. And Josh is the person who's thinking about the real world
Yeah.
outside of there.
Yeah.
And he brings that into the equation. Now, the genius is they take him out the equation,
Brilliant.
which means that it's all about the fantasy. There's no reality left. Any other film, you would need an explanation. Where is he? What's happened? What's going on? And I think for a character to make that much impact is a real testament to his acting ability and a real testament to the character. I think he's fantastic in this. Grounds it until it doesn't need grounding anymore. Then they take him out. And for me, that's perfect direction. That's perfect acting. It's a perfect dynamic.
I think his name resonates the most from the cast because it's just shouted a lot.
Yeah, you hear it loads. Yeah.
You do.
Well, he was actually signed on first out of the three of them.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that's not a surprise is he was a jobbing photographer and videographer living in New York.
Right.
And he only went the audition because a friend had told him about it. And one of the prerequisites for this character was that they needed someone who could operate a camera. So he came to the audition with this camera. They did, in his words, a little mini improv, and he was told he had the job.
That was a much sought after skill. So if once they saw somebody who could do improv and hold a camera, boom, that's it. We don't need to ask any more questions.
Definitely.
After the audition, he was told, let us raise some money and we'll get back to you. And it wasn't until about 12 months later that they started to talk about going into production.
Right.
Right.
And he's the only cast member to make a career out of acting, really. He's been in loads of film and TV since his debut.
Yeah, yeah.
As production got closer, the reality of it began to intensify for the actors. They started to get fake flyers through the post for events happening in Burkittsville, and more information was provided to them to build out their characters.
All Michael Williams was told was that he had to be the most scared out of the three of them. But they should all stay as close to their own personalities as they could be. The filmmakers were adamant that as soon as anything started to look like a movie, it would be removed immediately. And you totally get that.
Totally.
There's no lamination on this whatsoever.
There's nothing
It's
theatrical.
not even a lens to the camera. It just feels like you're just part of the scene.
Yeah, it does.
And they were encouraged to stay in character for as much of the day as possible. But when they needed to break character, the actors came up with the safe word, taco. And they all had to say the word in reply so they could break and discuss things like, have you thought about trying this? Why don't you do that? That was maybe a little unbelievable when you screamed so quickly or so loudly there, etc.
I think you get lost in, like we've said before, the mythology of it. Like you think that they just went out there and they just went crazy, but there was a lot of technique involved.
Oh, yeah.
They would improvise moments as they went along. Leonard suggesting his character to maybe do a bit on a tree swing, so they decided between themselves, would that be a good idea? Yeah, be a good idea. So they filmed the scene and just kind of see what comes as a result of it.
Yeah.
Greg Hale, the producers, his famous lines to the actors before they went into the woods was, your safety is our primary concern, but your comfort is not.
Wow. Yeah. The cast were told as little as possible, only being given the absolute essentials. They knew the direction they had to walk, the locations were mapped out for them, and the filmmakers came up with a safety plan for them. But still, I mean, is that enough?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
No.
No.
And we mentioned the rations earlier. These slowly became smaller and smaller as the days progressed. So at the start of shooting, they'd get a sandwich and crisps or chips for lunch. And then that was downgraded to no lunch at all by day 5 or 6. But the actors did anticipate this. They knew it was going to happen, so they never felt at risk.
I mean, that's quite a downgrade after 5 days.
Yeah.
Sandwich, crisps, nout.
Yeah. A leaf.
Not even a Twix or anything.
This film would never have been made if there wasn't this structure in place.
No, exactly.
No.
It's
No
really
way.
well thought through. It's a very intelligent film, to be fair.
It is. So despite the low budget and lack of experience, the cast of the Blair Witch Project is an outstanding one.
Yes.
This episode of All the Right Movies is sponsored by BetterHelp. Without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy works. But what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships or at work and not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles and start feeling better because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. And a special offer to all ATRM listeners, you can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/ATRM. That's betterhelp, HELP.com/ATRM. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode of All the Right Movies.
The middle.
Things are beginning to heat up in the second act. Day 4 is a washout, and the nocturnal noises persist. We're waking up on day 5, where it's all about to go fuck up.
Yeah.
And I'm starting off as Heather opens her tent in the morning.
Okay.
And I'll go back to what I was saying before about the directing. This is very simple but effective storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
These piles of rocks outside the tent, the wooden effigies later from the trees, they're all eerie symbols in horror history. They're as iconic as Freddy's glove or Leatherface's chainsaw for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the power comes from, what does this mean? When they find the rocks earlier, it's got to symbolize something because the rocks are everywhere. When these rock formations show up in the tent, party's over. The sounds before were a warning. Now these 3 are marked, and there ain't nothing they can do about it.
Yeah, it's physical now, isn't it?
It is. Something's put these rocks here, and they aren't happy.
No.
I think it's a common misconception that the actors were scared all the time during the shoot and were of the opinion that the legend was real. But Joshua Leonard said they were cold and wet all the time, and when they finally got comfortable at night, that's when the filmmakers would start up their shenanigans.
Shenanigans, it's a great word for it.
And the cast would all kind of let out a collective groan like, oh no, we've got to do this again. So that kind of breaks the veneer of reality for them.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't take me long. Like if I was in the situation of the characters, not the actors, it wouldn't take me long to start believing there are supernatural forces at work here, even though I consider myself to be a rational man. Considering the fantastical nature of the Blair Witch, it's the relatability of the situation is why it's so effective for me. Being alone in the woods, lost, no food, no water, no cigarettes. Absolutely frightening.
Yeah.
The mask would slip immediately for me.
Well, after that, it gets worse for them because then the map goes missing. And this is one of those ones where you feel the screws starting to tighten on these 3, and you can see the fractures in their relationship become really noticeable because only one or 2 things can have happened here. Either Heather's lost it, which is a mark against her leadership, or one of the other 2 guys has took it for some reason, which puts them obviously in a massively bad light. And the map has been so important up until now. It's been the one thing they've been clinging to. Yeah. We've got a map. We can get out. This will get us to safety. And now it's gone. This coupled with that previous scene where Josh and Mike are already starting to lose their patience with Heather and her insistence on filming. There's a real sinking feeling in the stomach now. It's only going to get worse from here on in.
Yeah.
Because where's the trust in this argument that starts, I'm not playing head games, you're playing head games. You want to stay here, you want to film rocks, you want to look around. It's all starting to escalate. And it's such an interesting scene to watch in retrospect, knowing what Mike has done with the map, and he's responsible because he's really keeping his distance from the pair of them. And he's just given these little small interjections like, you really don't have it? And then kind of backing off and going, let's go, when the argument gets really heated because he wants to get them moving again to stop talking about the map because obviously the guilt is on his shoulders. And you can hear it in his voice, I think, in retrospect. So this scene, I think it's really pivotal because this is where the panic really sets in. They are now truly lost and they can't even trust each other.
Yeah, it's amazing. That map was a symbol of hope.
Yeah.
And that's been taken away now.
I think it's just knowing what happened to the map is really heartbreaking. It shatters me every time because Mike is just completely beyond repair. To me, it's like Google Maps without any signal. It's comfortable to have it there, but it's not updating. It's useless. Is he right? Is he right to throw that away and just say, right, let's become more determined to find out how we're going to get out of this because the map's fucking pointless and it's useless and we're putting too much thought into it. So I don't know if he's right to do what he's done.
I think in retrospect, it doesn't matter.
No,
because
exactly.
they were doomed anyway.
Yeah, but in his head, he's kind of thinking, well, this is just going to make them more focused to get out of here. We've got to get out. It's America. We've got to get out of here.
Yeah.
You know, there's got to be somebody somewhere.
Yeah.
Let's just keep going. And I think he's got the best interests at heart, but he's just a bit confused about what he's done. But it's just that reveal, just the way he laughs about it, just the way he thinks. It's just so, like, it's the right thing to do. And it's Heather's reaction to this is probably what makes people hate her, is that she is so over the top with it, and you've damned us now, and it's all, and it becomes really the opposite of what I think Mike as a character wanted to do with the map. He wanted to promote like a real, just a bigging up of everybody, and just like, right, we don't have the map, but we'll get out of here. We'll find somewhere to get out and stop arguing about it, because the map was useless. They're still lost. Still didn't know how to read it. So I think he was just really trying to reinforce that, and it backfires on him. And as it backfires on him, it backfires on the characters, it backfires on the audience, it backfires on the whole film. And now you think, holy shit, we are truly, truly lost. And I think it's a wonderful scene to throw in.
That argument is magnificent. It's so intense.
Yeah.
It's transfixing. You can't look away from it. It's amazing stuff.
Yeah, it's great.
So with the map and the creek, trust and hope starts to evaporate, even for Heather at this point.
Yes.
The intensity is ramped up significantly in the next stretch of the film.
Yeah.
Westy, over to you to start things off.
Yeah, I mean, when they see them stick formations, it takes you straight back to Mary and her gate. And is she responsible for this? And it becomes so, like, kind of vivid and so basic that it's scary.
Yes, it is.
Anything more intense would have completely lost the whole vibe of it. I think you needed something so simplistic, like a child could do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there's nothing more terrifying than just some sticks put together in a certain way that means something you don't understand.
Yeah. That's the thing, isn't it? It means something.
And what does it mean? Am I cursed now? Like, is this powerful? Should I be worried? Should I touch it? Should I not?
And there's so many of them as well. It's not just like they found one.
Yeah, exactly.
It's an infestation.
It's so haunting in the fact that they've been made with something behind it. There's some reasoning behind it. There's like this twine there, and they've put the branches there, and everything's just like symmetrically brilliant, and it creates a shape. And that shape was just on the poster, then that shape was on the book, and it was like, this is what it's all about. And I'm sure they just went, what's the scariest way we can put 6 or 7 sticks together like this? It really works. It terrifies me. Imagine just waking up and just looking over, even if you're in your bedroom and one of them's just hanging over your door. You're like, that's it, I'm done. It's such a brilliant visual reference where every time you think of the Blair Witch Project, you think of these stick figures.
Yeah, you do. No going back. It's a point of no return, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's this horrible supernatural wall that's built up with these like spectral figures, and it really hits home. It's so simple, but it's so effective.
It is, yeah.
I mean, Westy said about the ramping up of the tension, because it's gone from, this will be a fun little adventure, to, we've got lost, I'm not sure where we are, but that's the only thing that's going on. But then you get the next scene, which is where any doubt that there's something malevolent out there playing with them is gone, because it's when their tent gets attacked. And it's like, all this weird shit, it is not a coincidence. There's something in the woods, and it's targeting them. This scene for me is just pure terror, and I can so vividly remember watching this for the first time at the cinema. I nearly hit the roof, and it still carries the same power no matter how many times I've seen it, because how you can think being in the middle of the woods in the middle of the night and you wake up to hear children running around your tent and a baby crying isn't the most terrifying thing imaginable. I don't know. And like you said earlier, Luke, one of these scenes comes in from complete darkness. So it's so disorientating, because, well, they've turned the camera on for a reason, and Mike already looks terrified, but he doesn't know what's going on.
Even when you have children and you hear your own children crying, it's fucking terrifying. It's someone else's kids. That's not my responsibility, man.
No.
I don't want to be part of this.
But you can't ignore these kids either, that's the thing.
Exactly.
And it's when you start to hear the voices, because the sound design is so good, because it's just unclear enough that your first reaction is that a kid? No, it can't be a kid. No, surely not.
Yeah, exactly.
But then when you hear the giggle, and the giggle is like right next to your head, and it's Christ almighty, that's the last thing you want to hear, and then the tent starts shaking. And for how fast they're running, it's incredible that they still managed to capture two of the most iconic moments of the film, when Heather shrieks, "What the fuck is that?"
Yeah.
They managed to get her in the frame perfectly, because on the one hand, you really want to see what you're seeing, but on the other hand, you really, really don't. You just think, that's the last thing I want to see.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just love that incredible image where they get to what they think is safety. And you get that image of Heather just caught in the torchlight standing up and trying to look around, but she's almost like completely whited out. That looks amazing as well. So, yeah, this scene for me, it's the turning point of the film.
I mean, this tent attack was fueled with like legitimate terror. Like the actors weren't expecting it whatsoever, and genuine fear was caught on camera here. And you can tell it's wonderful stuff.
Oh, yeah.
When you were saying, Matt, that moment that Heather says, "What the fuck is that?"
Yeah.
It was the art director, Ricardo Moreno, who was dressed all in white long johns, white stockings, white tights over his head.
Yeah.
The camera was supposed to pan over to capture him, but forgot to.
Right.
Sanchez and Myrick decided to keep it in because it fit with the notion of keeping everything off camera. And it was one of those happy accidents because it really works that it's not there.
It's the break in her voice. So what the fuck is that? They're just really fucking
I
terrified.
love the fact that Heather's seen it and she's not expecting it. Like the actress Heather is not expecting it. And that's all in camera.
And then doesn't mention it, doesn't describe it.
No.
Doesn't say anything about it.
To the
Like, what the fuck
imagination.
is that? Please.
Yeah.
She wants to delete this quickly as possible. Yeah.
Because it makes you think that you've seen something. That's a classic trope.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Because you fill your brain with this horrific imagery.
Yeah.
After this, I'm talking about Josh's mental breakdown. And God bless Josh, because he's due back at work. His girlfriend is definitely going to notice that he's not back home. He just wants out of this situation, and he's lost all faith in Heather. And now, after they spent the night hiding in the bushes, running away from what was frightening them in their tent, they make it back to the tent, and all of his shit has been messed with.
Yeah.
So all of this combined leads up to this point where he isolates himself and is a completely broken man. And what I like is that we're kept at a distance from Josh. It's all from Heather's perspective. And his story is told through her and Mike's conversation about Josh losing it, and all you hear is just him in the background asking for cigarettes.
Yeah.
And I think it's believable that one of them would crack like this. I mean, they're all headed for this mental state. Josh just gets there first.
Yeah.
And I think that weakness, quote unquote, is anticipated by the Blair Witch, which is why Josh goes first. I do feel very sorry for him, but the line, "What the fuck was this blue jelly shit all over my shit," is very, very funny. What is that blue jelly shit?
All over my shit.
They've all been marked for a while now, but it's imminent for Josh. That blue jelly shit will not wash off now.
No.
And we never see that either. It's just,
No, we don't. It thinks it's water. It is slime, man. So our trio are psychologically broken. Now it's time to ram things up some more.
Here we go.
The crew.
I'm sure it's not a surprise to anyone, but there was a minimal crew working on the Blair Witch Project. We're starting with the screenplay, quote unquote, written, quote unquote, by, again, Dan Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez. Matt, what are your thoughts on the writing?
Yeah, I mean, as you've said there, it's obviously very unusual in terms of writing for this film. It's not like anything else we've ever talked about, really, because...
It's bullet points, isn't it? It's a bullet point screenplay.
It's bullet points, yeah, how it's built up. In terms of writing, I'll just look at it through the perspective of how they build up the mythology. That is the backbone of the film, that everyone in the film knows about. So those names, Rustin Parr, Coffin Rock, there's something really evocative about those.
Yeah.
And I think what the background taps into is a real familiarity. We've all heard similar urban legends at some point. Like, I did grow up in a small village, and one side of the village it was lined with heavy woodland. And anyone who's grown up anywhere like that, there's always stories.
There's always stories.
Always, don't go in the woods alone. I saw this thing, this person heard that, they came running out for whatever. And that's the familiarity that Blair Witch really resonates with. Like, again, where I grew up, there genuinely was an old abandoned house, and everyone said, oh, stay away from there, it's a bad place, it's haunted, you know. And again, it was just abandoned. But these myths and legends that spring up.
Like Bloody Mary, it always reminds me of.
Yeah, Bloody Mary in the mirror of mythology of places you don't go, and I think Blair Witch completely nails that. And it didn't have to be set in the woods. It could be set in a valley somewhere, it could be set in a mountain range. But again, the fact it's in the woods, that's such a smart move, because, yeah, on one hand you think woods, beautiful, nature, who doesn't love that? But I guarantee everyone, at some point in their lives, you've been in some woods somewhere and you've been creeped out just for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
don't know why. Maybe you felt you're being watched by something, or the silence can unnerve you, or something like that, and you just think, I want to get the hell out of here, actually. So I think Blair Witch is really smart in building up the mythology that everything rests on.
Yeah.
Westy, writing for you, how do you feel about it?
I feel great about it, if I'm completely honest. I think what we're seeing is the bones of the story. And the great thing about the Blair Witch Project is you're watching the meat go onto the bones as it progresses, as it works through. And you're seeing kind of it's a work in progress, and it's a
not a
wonderful
Coen
work
script.
in progress. Yeah, there's nothing to the letter. As we've said about the direction, it's very much, this is your situation. How are you going to react to that? 3 characters and their relationships are so mismatched. Like we said at the top, Matt, it's like we don't even know him. We don't even know Mike.
Yeah.
And he comes into this, and the first thing they do is shoot everything Heather's way, and then they just have some scotch. And the next day, Josh is hurt, and he's obviously had more than anyone else. He's a little bit further afield than everyone. And you kind of get this dynamic, and I think it really works. To their credit, it's to keep the brackets on the story, to keep it grounded, to keep it level, because they could have went anywhere with this. It could have gone fucking stupid at the end with, like we've said, things just flying at the camera and whatever else. From start to finish, it's found footage. They're not tempted by, that beautiful apple in the Garden of Eden where they're like, you can put a ghost at the end of this because it's lo-fi, it's on 16mm, and we can do a really good effect and really freak people out. And they're like, nah, we're just going to keep it human. Yeah. It's a very human film. And in the script as well, I mean, Heather and Josh were previously romantically involved, which I think kind of comes across like they might have had a one-night stand or something.
Right.
It's just kind of underlying in that.
Because
they
they're
have
both
that...
in the same house, aren't they, when the film opens?
Exactly. And he talks about his girlfriend more than he should. And he talks about his job, and he wants to get back to his life. I think there might have been something there. And I think it's really good, but it was written totally out of the story, which is probably for the best. It would have segregated Mike a little bit too much. He would have just been too much of an outsider.
So. Yeah. It had been written out of the draft before they got onto the set.
There's a familiarity between Josh and Heather. There's an understanding between them two.
There is.
Which,
there
again,
is.
Beautiful. It's a question, no answer.
Yeah, no, and there's a lot of fan theory about that as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
Sanchez and Myrick were buddies at Central Florida University in the early 90s. Myrick said that being film students, they were always trying to come up with different ideas and eventually hit on a horror movie. They felt that there hadn't been any great horror movies for years, like the ones that really used to scare them when they were kids.
Yeah.
They were inspired by the classics, obviously, like Alien, The Shine, and Jaws. And the documentary style came from lesser-known gems like The Legend of Boggy Creek and the sci-fi TV documentary show In Search Of, which was a big inspiration for Myrick, particularly when I interviewed him, he went on about that quite a lot.
Yeah.
And they settled on it being documentary style, shot in the woods, ultimately ending at a house that, unbeknownst to them, they've been led to all along. And the reason why the characters were filming in the woods was hotly debated, apart from it being a family vacation. They decided there should be some spooky local witch legend, and it had to be shot in Maryland, reckoning that Maryland isn't too far from Salem, where the notorious witch trials happened in the 1600s.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that Burkittsville is around 500 miles from Salem can be sidestepped, I'm sure, because in America that might seem like next door, but in England that's like 3 countries away or something.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
And producer Greg Hale was friends with Myrick and Sanchez from school. Once he heard the basic outline for the film, he was immediately interested. He had ambitions of being a writer, director, but said, I'll do whatever I have to do to make this happen, and if that's producing, then that's what I'll do.
Yeah, I think he just wanted to be involved because he loved the premise of it immediately.
Great premise.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, it is. It's amazing. Myrick and Sanchez set about writing the script with the conventional kind of 3-act structure, detailed story beats, what would be happening to the characters hour by hour, what the conversations would be like, but there was just no dialogue included.
Right.
It was about 30 to 40 pages of just directions. So early on, they knew that the dialogue would come naturally from the dynamic of the actors.
Great.
And that's what I'm just impressed about from the writers. They didn't write any dialogue or very, very little. They left it all out there for the 3 nobody actors who hadn't starred in anything at all to come up with the goods on the strength of a couple of auditions.
Yeah.
What? There were detailed notes in the script. There were instructions on what to say at certain points and how to say it. So a strong framework, but the cast were given carte blanche just to fill in the spaces in between.
Yeah.
And the cast shot all day, but there's very little time to review the footage because they were too busy mapping out the next day's shoot, making sure that the cast had the right gear and supplies, and then doing the directing duties as well.
Yeah, there'd be so much footage to go through. ridiculous.
It was about 19 hours in total.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, if Myrick and Sanchez weren't reviewing the footage from the previous day, so then they couldn't tell the actors if they were veering off course,
Right.
or if the scene was messed up, they couldn't see if it needed to be shot again. So that's some huge faith that you're placing on the cast.
Yeah.
And I know it was out of necessity to capture the atmosphere that was needed, but it could have just crumbled. What if Josh, Mike, and Heather were just taking a piss for 8 days, larking around in the woods?
Yeah. I love that, though. That's great. They must think, well, there must be something there.
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's just this
there's got to be
Hail
something.
Mary. Like, it must be something.
It is a Hail
That's
Mary,
fine.
though, isn't
is
it,
a Hail
really?
Mary, yeah. And it's worked. Good.
It has, yeah. It's a highly unusual way of writing a screenplay. And I don't think there's been anything like it in mainstream cinema. Not that this is mainstream cinema, but that has crossed over into mainstream cinema. And I love that story.
Mm-hmm.
I think they got lucky on a few levels because
Very lucky,
this could have gone wrong on a number of levels, and we'll talk about that more as we go into the crew.
Mm-hmm.
But they had absolute confidence in their casting process, and I think that's where the root of their confidence lies. Is they rooted out all the people that they know wouldn't have been able to come up with the goods.
Mm-hmm.
It absolutely paid off. They were writing what they were doing.
Yeah, you're right.
So a unique approach to writing a screenplay, which paid off in droves.
Yes.
A slightly different look at the soundtrack for this film. We're focused on the sound design by Jack Sherdle, and there's one piece of music by Antonio Cora that plays at the end.
Yeah.
Matt, your thoughts on the use of sound in the film?
It's just so pivotal to the film's success, really, isn't it? And the tricky thing from their perspective is how much of it can they capture in camera on the shoot, because if they start adding in stuff in post, the bigger the chance they're going to lose the realism that they're aiming for. Plus, they obviously need Heather, Mike, and Josh to be reacting to the sounds themselves, so they have to be done on location. So from that perspective, it's incredible what they've achieved, and it's the distance they create with each of the sound effects. That initial first sound of kind of like crackling. Josh says it sounds like cackling to him, but I can never really work out what it's supposed to be, but it does sound really far away. And then you've got the children laughing, which is obviously right up against the tent. And again, you go back that scene, if you watch with headphones, you can start to make out there are some discernible words in there. Like you can hear a kid say they're in there or come here.
I'll be honest with you, Matt, I'm never watching this wearing headphones.
It's a trip.
Never.
I'll say that.
It's not going to happen.
I would say it's well worth it. It's a different viewing experience.
I don't know if I can do it. I don't know. I need some space.
Oh, no, it's definitely worth at least once.
Fair enough.
And then when you've got Josh screaming after he's disappeared, I mean, that is perfectly judged in terms of how far away they want to be, because you can't tell when the listener, you're like, geez, where is he? Is he close? Is he far away? Is it all around us? And again, that has to be perfect, because that's one of the most disturbing scenes, so they can't afford to get that wrong. Mm-hmm. And then in general, there just seems to be this like ambient hum in the woods during the daytime scenes. Like, it's really interesting. You don't hear a lot of animal noises in this, which is quite unusual considering how deep in the woods they are. There is some bird noise, but again, it's very distant. It's very faint. And you just kind of have this slight, it's almost like that kind of insect noise, very faintly in the background. So yeah, I think the sound design is just perfect for this. It needed to be, because that creates so much of the atmosphere.
Yeah, I mean, it's great because it's real. And there's nothing in here that's been amplified. There's no big stings. There's no big jump scares. There's nothing. It's very clean as well. It's been done very, very well from where they are and what they've had to do. And they're shooting on 16mm. It's not easy to record sound at all. Anyway, on a controlled set, never mind one that is just with this much flair and ambiguity. Really, you don't really know what's going to happen. You don't know what they're going to say or how loud they're going to say it. You know, there's people screaming at some points, there's people whispering at some points, and it is as important as the visuals, I think, for this film to work, because like you said at the top, Luke, it's like we see a lot of black screen, and the sound is more important than the visuals in this film, I think.
I agree.
Kind of all the way through it. You want to hear more. You lean towards the screen and just what, and then it shocks you back. It's like, what do you say? And because it's real life. And if you have that moment in real life, it's not perfectly laid out dialogue where you're like, I understand what that character's saying, and it's done take after take after take. This is literally, if you blink, you miss it, and it's your fault. So it's just exactly what needs to be done. It's so well done. It's just really, really great because you don't hear everything. There's this level of distance between everything, like Matt touched on. Like when you hear Josh screaming, did you hear him screaming? When you hear the babies, that's right in your ear. And it's like there's this level of like there's this distance which shows that they've got so much further to go on this journey. They are so lost because this depth in the sound is so far
it's
away.
so far away, yeah.
It's terrifying, and I think that's really, really brilliant the way they've done that. Yeah.
I mean, the sound is incredible. And then you've got that, I was going to say a track, but calling it a track as the credits roll. It's a stretch calling it music. It's called The Cellar by Antonio Cora.
Yeah, that's why I've not really touched on it, to be honest.
Just the ultimate sound of doom.
Yeah.
Like you're being sucked down into an abyss.
You want to run out the cinema when that's played. Just run away. I don't want anything behind us.
It reminds me of the track at the end of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, yeah.
A little bit. Industrial.
It's that cut to black as well. They've used that really well.
It is, yeah. I mean, this film breaks tradition in so many ways. One music piece in the whole film, and it plays at the end. Absolutely nothing else.
No.
There was, though, originally at the start of the film, We Got to Get Out of This Place by the Animals was playing on the radio in the car scene, but it had to be redubbed because Alderson just didn't have the money to pay for the rights.
Yeah. I mean, too on the nose, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is a great song, though.
Yeah, great song. Yeah. But the studio did stump up the cash for Gilligan's Island theme tune that Mike sings.
Yeah.
Right.
And there was a retrospective soundtrack to the film titled Josh's Blair Witch Mixtape.
Yeah.
Music inspired by the film apparently found in Josh's car.
Oh, okay, right.
And it featured Public Image Limited, Bauhaus and Lydia Lunch, among other classic artists. Also include a little bit of personal information there.
You said that with a straight face, didn't you? Fucking furious.
But also included on Josh's mixtape on his way to the Blair Witch, the Black Hills, was The Cellar by Antonio Cora.
Right.
So, I mean, how meta can you get that
That's
Josh was
so
already
meta.
listening to a song that wasn't made yet?
Yeah. Brilliant.
You know, no movie score at all, really, and usually they're in there to heighten the tension, but it's not needed here.
It's not needed
It
whatsoever,
doesn't feel
no.
as though it's missing.
No.
I think it's really well judged as well because music just wouldn't fit the film's aesthetic.
Wouldn't.
No.
But like a lot of things, I think it was motivated partially because the budget was so low.
Yeah.
And like you've said, the incredible sound design, just a handful of film school nerds rubbing rocks together in the woods.
Yeah.
But in the context of the scenes, it's chilling.
Yeah.
And it goes back to what you don't see.
Yeah.
What we heard starts to paint a picture in our mind's eye, and it isn't pretty.
No.
No.
Yeah, the sounds of children heard at night was taken from the kids' playground around the houses of Sanchez's mother, actually. The tape was looped throughout the night over boomboxes in the woods. Williams said it was the most terrifying moment of filming, and I cannot disagree with him, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Of course. So once again, a non-traditional approach to a key filmmaking element, which is pulled off masterfully, unbelievably.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Finally, cinematography. The credited DP was Neil Fredericks, but we're not talking about the RE Alexa here, are we, Westy?
Well, certainly not. No. Nice. Well done. Yeah, I mean, I've written down my first part of my notes. It is what it is.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. I think they were just given a camera and saying, make sure it's exposed, make sure it's in focus, and make sure you capture as much as possible. And I would imagine there was so much that they left out of this film as opposed to what they put into it. I think they would have shot and shot and shot. Again, that's a testament to the directors for getting this so right in the edit and making it so linear and making it 1 hour and 20. Because if I'd made this film be 4 hours long, oh, let's go this way and let's go this way. And what about this? Oh, what about? And they've kept it really, really tight. Mm-hmm. And I think what you do see on the screen is really well done. It is really well shot. Like Matt said, what the fuck is that? And you look up and they're in shot. It's that should have been planned out. That should have been, maintained. I think the way that the camera moves represents the audience's state of mind. When it whip pans over to somebody and whip pans back, you want to see that person. You want to see Mike's reaction. You want to see Josh's reaction. What related to everybody was that it's a real home camera kind of vibe. And there's nothing worse than someone sitting you down going, watch this. This is my birthday last year. And here's the home footage. And it's not being edited and it's just shit. It is relatable. It can be your video. And it's shot on 4:3. So it's a television ratio. It's not widescreen. It's not for the cinema.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
This is actually found footage. So deal with it. But what we've done is we've taken all the bits out that really wouldn't interest you, and we've left everything in that would interest you. So find what you want out of it. To get everything focused on a 16mm, to get everything focused on a really old school DV camera, and get it cut together as well, and get the sound to match, and get everything to match, and have just this look. And it's probably one of the most human films that I've seen, where it's just you point it where you want to see it, and it works, and you see everything you want to see. But at the same time, it doesn't answer any questions, so it works across the board.
It does, yeah. It fits the narrative, doesn't it?
Definitely.
And you'd be forgiven for thinking that the filmmakers and the cast had a wealth of experience considering what they have captured.
Yeah.
But nope, first
nothing.
films for everyone.
Yeah.
Although he was a cameraman, Joshua Leonard had never shot with a 16mm camera before.
Right.
So cinematographer Neil Fredericks gave him a crash course when he first arrived on set. They just went out shooting for the day to show Leonard the ins and outs, and that was it. That scene near the start about Josh filming in feet versus meters was real. That's a mistake that Leonard actually made.
Oh, right.
That's why the footage of Mary Brown isn't the best. It's a little out of focus because Leonard was a novice with that camera.
Right.
And I think this is just unbelievable. Sanchez and Myrick might as well have just said to the cast, you three clowns who've been in nothing before and we've just met you, go out into the woods, here's some instructions, just come up with a dialogue on the spot, here's some cameras, press that button, film everything, make sure it's in focus, and we'll be around to scare the bejesus out of you from time to time. Go.
Where'd you go from there?
I mean, how they got anything usable at all is it's a miracle.
It's outrageous.
Imagine us three out there. There's no way our footage would match. Westy's would be all cinematic, black and white, obviously, and I'd be filming Matt like one of his farts.
Walk across the stream like a tracking shot from me, really smooth. And then just end up with a fart. Bored of the Rings.
But again, I mean, amazed they pulled it off.
I know.
And it's always said that this film could never be made again. And that's with the advent of a lot of things like social media, mobile phones, the internet, etc., which is perfectly valid. But another reason this could never happen again is because lightning doesn't strike twice. What are the odds of 3 novice filmmakers and 3 novice actors going into the woods with limited experience of using a camera, no traditional script, no budget, and coming back with one of the great horror films? It could never happen again.
No.
It's wonderful.
Matt, cinematography for you?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that strikes me about this is, despite everything we've said, not only does it work, but there's some really memorable shots in this. Like, they're very stark, but there's something really evocative about them as well in their simplicity. And most of the ones I'm thinking of are shot on the black and white. Like in the documentary intro that they shoot, there's that great shot of the gravestones, which is slightly askew. It's slightly unbalanced. But the sun flare is coming down right in the middle of the frame.
Yeah.
Great.
It's done perfectly. I mean, it's very Texas Chainsaw to me, that shot. Really reminds me of like the opening in that graveyard. And then there are shots in the woods where you get glimpses of the sun just through the trees. And again, it's that word for me. It's very stark, but it's kind of bleakly beautiful at the same time. You know, when the sun is just starting to come down and they're catching it through the trees. And I think the sequence where they find all the twig figures, some of those shot on black and white with the sun behind them as well. Really great stuff. So you wouldn't necessarily think about it. I do think there's some great visuals in here.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, amazingly.
Amazingly, somehow.
Yeah. So, non-traditional filmmaking at its finest on the Blair Witch Project. A true filmmaking miracle.
Yes.
Absolutely.
The end.
The third act of the Blair Witch Project is a near-perfect lesson in tension building and horror movie magic. Matt, start us off.
I'm starting off with Josh totally losing his patience with Heather and the argument that they get into, which is, it's so tough to watch, I think, because the mental breakdown of the group and them individually is just almost total at this point. Like, they are barely hanging on to their sanity and they've got nothing else to do but turn on each other now. And I think this is the point where it's sinking in for all of them. They're not getting out of this. Whatever direction they've took, they end up back where they started. Something's hunting them and it's getting closer each night. And it's also the point for me in the film where it really hits home how desolate these woods are. Not just the fact they've not seen any of the humans, but no wildlife either. You'd have thought at some point you'd see a raccoon, a fox, a squirrel or something, but no. These woods, they're just such a dead zone. And when Josh does turn on Heather, it just feels really cruel because she's lost her hope at this point. She's trying to take some time for herself with her thoughts, and he's in her face with that camera, and it's so uncomfortable the way he just stands there filming her for so long, and he doesn't say a word until, I want to make movies, Heather. And his delivery is just laced with so much venom.
Yeah,
and I really like how Heather stands up to him at this point, just that, fuck you, she gives back to him. It's really powerful. And you've got Mike trying to play the peacemaker, but yeah, you can just tell everyone's past the breaking point. You know, Mike's trying to get them to focus, like, come on guys, we've got to make camp, we've got to take turns to stay on watch now. But it's just,
I'll take first watch.
I'll take first watch. There's not, I think that lack of hope, it's just got to Josh. You know, and his rant here, you know, he's your motivation. You're lost, you're angry in the woods. No one is here to help you. There's a fucking witch. We walked for 15 hours. No one is here to help you. That's your motivation.
Yeah.
Like, it's understandable where his anger was coming from.
Yes,
but he's so unhinged at this point. It's so bleak to watch this unfold. And for people who criticise Donahue's performance, I mean, did they just completely miss this scene? Because her breakdown into tears, it's heart-rending stuff. It's so realistic.
It's so real. I think this is probably closer to being real.
I would imagine
to acting.
Oh, absolutely. It definitely crosses that line. Yeah. And I think this scene, it also answers the question that people always bring up as a criticism. Oh, well, why did they keep filming? Like Heather says, it's all just got left.
Yeah.
But just that final line as she walks off, it's an absolute killer. You're going to write as a happy ending, Heather? Nope.
No. Devastating.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah, very unpleasant. Very unpleasant. Heather gets her fair share of verbal beatings from the two boys. And this is probably the worst from Josh. Horrific.
Yeah, so it's so sustained.
Yeah, but she holds her own, though. I think it's a
She
great
does. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. I mean, from there, we have Josh being despicable to Josh disappearing. And that's, again, a really fucking brilliant move from the filmmakers. It's like, I'm sick of this guy, and he's gone. And it's like, oh, no, I feel guilty about that now. It's a kind of, I'm sorry about the way I felt. Can you bring him back? Because we all need to be together again. This is just going to get even worse. But I think it's the subtlety in what happens here. It's the finding the teeth outside the tent. Ooh. And it's such a strange thing to find, because as an audience, you want that to be bigger. You want you see the blood, and you're like, I want that to be a severed head, or I want that to be an arm. I want that to be something that really cements this story as terrifying. And it's not; it's just teeth.
It's just.
And you're like, well, that could come from an animal. That could come. There's no proof that that's Josh. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that makes it even scarier because it's just so subtle. And I think that's what the whole film's trying to do. Is the subtlety in this film is what makes it terrifying. You never get big answers. You get big questions, but you never get big answers. It's Heather's reaction in this that really sells it for me. And just looking through this blood and fucking hell. I mean, I would probably just go, it's teeth. That's disgusting. It's that shock that she gets that shocks through the audience.
Yeah, it does. It reverberates, doesn't it?
Yeah, it makes this small thing so much bigger.
Yeah.
And I think that's the genius of it, and that's really good from her performance. It should have been an answer to something. It should have been, this is identifiable as Josh. It should have been something from him. His watch or his fucking ponytail or whatever. I don't know. But it's just teeth. And you're just like, well, again, that's wide open. Can someone give us some answers here? And there's no answers. You're not allowed. And I love that.
We mentioned earlier about the directors having to step in to give direction from time to time.
Yeah.
Another time was during this scene. Heather had to be told that the package outside her tent had to be opened. She couldn't just throw it away.
Right. She would have, wouldn't you?
Yeah. But I think it works for the scene. If you find something you don't like, just throw it away and pretend it doesn't exist.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just pop that over there.
Yeah.
Well, the teeth were acquired by Eduardo Sanchez's dentist.
Right.
And the hair was really Joshua Leonard's hair.
Nice.
All right. Okay. And originally, Mike was the character who was going to go first, but Sanchez and Myrick noticed that as the days went by, Josh and Heather were fighting a lot more than originally planned, so they changed the plan to make Josh disappear inside, which nobody was expecting.
Right.
Yeah, on that day, Josh's notes were, when everybody goes to bed tonight, stay awake, and once you're sure they're asleep, leave the tent. If anybody wakes up, tell them that you're going to take a piss.
Right.
He didn't know any more than that. He did as the note said, made it away from the camp and was greeted by Sanchez, Myrick, and Greg Hale, who said to him, "You're dead, dude." And then they took him for a slap-up meal.
Lovely.
Loved it.
Yeah.
Steak meal guaranteed.
Yeah.
So following this is probably the most iconic scene in the film. much parodied in the years since.
Yeah.
Which itself, I think, is a huge compliment. Nobody parodies something crap, do they?
Exactly.
Even people who haven't seen this film before, they know this scene.
Yeah.
It's Heather's snotty monologue, shall we call it.
Yeah.
And I think it can be taken for granted for all those reasons, but I think it's justly iconic.
Yeah.
This is the moment where all of Heather's defences are shattered. Like I said, she's been the dominant force all week. Even when she's had her meltdowns, she's maintained a certain amount of optimism that the situation will improve, I suppose, just on the exterior. But she's now broken, and she's accepted her fate. And I mentioned Donahue in the cast, and this is the pinnacle. Anyone who thinks this is a bad performance can't have seen this scene. They just cannot have.
Nah.
You may not like the character, you may think she's annoying, and sometimes she is, but a Razzie win is a joke.
It's an absolute joke.
An absolute joke. Those are real tears. This is a real performance. You can see it all in camera.
Yeah.
It might not be over the moon to see liquid snot coming out of somebody's nose, but it's bloody effective.
Oh, massively, yeah.
And there are two chilling pieces of dialogue here for me. When Heather stops mid-speech and says, "What's that?" She's shattered.
Yeah.
We don't know if she's hearing things or not, but it just shows her state of mind. And this confession is what Mike and Josh have known all along, and I think deep down Heather has too. And then it's the final line. Silent for a moment, and then, "I'm going to die out here."
Oh,
End scene.
yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
Whoa, Jesus Christ.
I think as well the way this is shot is just so important. I mean, the plan was for Donahue to have an entire face in the frame, but Sanchez and Mirra decided not to reshoot it. They were just like, nah, that's just, the performance is too good to go back and try and frame it properly. And I think it's the framing of this, the off-framing, that really works, because it adds to that realism. And you're fucking terrified for it. I just really want to just get a hold of it and just be like, it's all right, come here. Oh, God, it's heartbreaking.
Donahue improvised the whole thing. Her notes were that you realise now that you're going to die. Say what you need to make amends.
Oh, Jesus Christ. It was my project. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is heartbreaking. I think you can kind of be forgiven for thinking that Heather Donahue, the real person, was so far into it that this is kind of reality. But she wasn't entirely lost in the moment. They had to drive about an hour away from where they were before to get to this location.
Right.
So reality had kicked back in. So she really had to get herself into a fragile state of mind. She said, "I had to goose myself a little bit."
Amazing.
And she also said, "I was so proud of that moment because it's everything you're not supposed to do as a film actress. The snot was flowing and it was unflattering and ugly and messy and sloppy. I don't think people get to see that kind of thing very often. A real good, ugly cry on screen."
Yeah, agreed.
It just fits, doesn't it? A person in that state is going to do that, is going to be off camera.
Yeah.
They're not going to give a shit about the settings and the zoom and all that.
No.
Okay, so now before we get to the house, we've got our second question from an ATRM Patreon supporter. Nice. This one comes from Ash McMahon. How are you doing, Ash?
Hello, Ash.
Hello, Ash.
Ash says, "I saw this on the small screen years before a re-release at the cinema. Personally, I feel its impact more on the small screen at home in the dark. Do you guys agree? And if so, can you think of any other examples where this is the case?" He said, "Late Night with the Devil, a new one, springs to mind."
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, any film at home in the dark works for me. Let's be honest.
Yes, I love it.
Absolutely fine. But I think anything that's shot 4:3 ratio, it just kind of begs to be watched back at home. But there was so many more films that didn't really work at the box office and worked so much better when you have the chance to reflect on them. I think films where you feel incredibly stripped bare, and this is one of them films where you don't want to share this experience with other people. There's certain films that you want to share the experience with people, and that's what the cinema's for. But I think films like Shawshank Redemption, you need to watch that by yourself in the dark. It's a fucking wonderful thing. Usual Suspects, again, which was massive because you want to just sit and think about it. Big Lebowski was a big one for me. I just wanted to kind of just sit and make that my thing. And finally, Spinal Tap. I think that's one of the perfect films to watch at home. I don't think that's a cinema film whatsoever. I think that should be played in every household on every hour forever. Whether it's dark or not, I don't care. But they're the ones for me. They're the ones for me.
Great. And I do agree with Ash as well. We mentioned the low budget, which I think gets a little found out on the big screen. I also think it would be nausea-inducing considering the handheld nature of the footage.
Much,
The film I thought of initially, because I had personal experience with it, was Paranormal Activity.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was likened to the Blair Witch when it first came out, and like this film, I read about it and was desperate to see it, and when I eventually did, it was late at night. I watched it on my laptop, and my face was about 6 inches from the screen.
God. Well done.
But you enjoyed the last shot in that film then, didn't you?
Yeah, but you
Well,
did.
Christ.
I was frozen with terror. And that final scene, the original final scene, not the studio one,
No.
the original final scene, I jumped like a cat who's just seen a cucumber.
Covered in tinfoil.
Terrifying stuff. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, isn't it? Because I've always maintained films are meant for the big screen.
Yeah.
Everything should be seen on the biggest screen possible whenever you can. But it is a good point with this one. And I think what I would say for this, it's a film where it depends on the audience. If this was re-released, I would just hate to end up watching it with people who don't get it, who thinks the sticks and stones are laughable,
Yeah.
who get bored and check the phones. That I'd want to watch this only with people of a similar mindset to myself who get it.
So just us then.
Us guys.
Yeah, I mean, us three would be fine,
That'll be fine.
And I think in terms of the small screen, I think the fact that we're watching VHS footage, essentially, it does add to the whole movie aesthetic of it. So I don't know if I'd say it's a better experience, but it definitely does work as something to watch with the lights out. Like say, stick the headphones on, connect them up to the TV and watch it that way. And I do think other films like this, I think just by their very nature, kind of any found footage really. I mean, yeah, Paranormal Activity is definitely one. I think we're going to mention some others in a bit. So, yeah, anything that does feel like this is like going back in the day and watching someone's home movie.
Yeah. Anything shot on a video camera, like a home video camera, handheld.
Yeah.
It works, doesn't it?
Yeah, forget about it.
Great. Okay, well, thank you for the question, Ash. A great one.
Yes, thank you, Ash.
Yes, thank you.
To finish off, we've got the iconic house scene.
Awful. It's
Yeah.
just awful.
It is horrific. And this film really nails the landing. I think usually if a horror film lets you down, it's going to be in the final third with a crap reveal or illogical motivation. But
just gets better, doesn't
not
it?
here. Oh, it gets better and better. There's no explanation required.
No.
I think it takes a lot of nerve or a limited budget to keep everything off screen.
Yeah.
Literally everything.
Yeah.
And it holds right to the last frame. Such balls.
Yeah.
Mike and Heather fumbling through the woods and they stumble on the first sign of life for 8 days. It's a house.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I've never been more terrified to see one.
Yeah.
What should be something really comforting.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
like I want to just go back to the tent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't want to
please.
go in there. It's
Yeah.
awful. Yeah.
I mean, where's this come from? Everything inside is screaming, don't go in. But
Yeah.
the pull is too strong to resist because it's Josh's voice beckoning them in.
Yeah.
And I think this is a marvel of production design by Ben Rock, the production designer on the film. It's filthy and decaying and rotten to the core. It's completely unwelcoming. And yet they're inside. And we know that absolutely nothing good can come of this.
No.
And it definitely doesn't.
No.
I really love the jumping between the two cameras and the disorientating distance in the sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's Mike's camera that's picking up the sound, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, it is, yeah.
That's kind of cross-cut, isn't it?
That's right, yeah. Love that. But the worst part, those little handprints all over the wall.
That is the worst part. 100%. Fucking why?
Don't know.
Just no. I would rather, like, it was a small panda's paw or something, and that's being killed. Fine. But children? Oh,
I know.
genius.
Panda's paw in the middle of the Maryland woods.
Imagine. Could you imagine direct this? We would actually feel it.
They had to travel about an hour to get to this location. As I said, it's where they shot Heather's monologue as well.
Yeah.
Rustin Parr's house in the middle of the woods. Real name is Griggs House.
Right.
They weren't aware that a house would be their final location. They were just camped outside the perimeter and were given their final instructions.
Right.
Michael Williams said his instructions were, Mike will hear something tonight, and when you hear it, you're going to follow it all the way up until Heather reaches you. And when Heather reaches you, you want to run all the way down. And Williams didn't know what all the way up and all the way down meant until he came upon the house. And his line, holy shit, it's a house, was his genuine reaction.
Wow.
Oh, God, that's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the whole reaction to hearing something. And Mike, I can hear Josh. He's downstairs. Come on, let's go. And there's that pandemonium where we've we've seen everything slowly. We've seen the handprints, like you've said, Luke. We've seen the house, and now we're running through it. I don't want to run through that place.
No.
I don't know what's around the corner. But you still have to. You still have to run with them, and you still have to be there and be part of it. But just that scene where it just ramps up even more than it's not a real exploration of a haunted house. It's running through a haunted house, which I don't think I've ever seen before. At that point, anyway, when I'd seen the film, and I thought the last thing I want to do is run through a haunted house, and that's what they're making you do. And it's even more terrifying than just walking through it. And who would have thought? It works so well, and then you come to that ending, and Jesus Christ, what an ending it is.
That's the thing as well, is that you don't know what's coming.
Yeah.
You don't know what's coming around the corner, upstairs, downstairs. It's pure terror. And this was the most setup of all the locations in the film, obviously. All the entrances to the house were blocked apart from one, and radios playing Josh's voice were played inside the house to guide the actors. But in reality, they could only go so far before they had to call cut and set up the ending of the film.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, what an ending it is as well. The build-up is so disorientating. As we said, the fact that Heather's camera doesn't have sound, so we see it from her perspective, but her voice is coming from Mike's camera, and you're like, what? Who am I listening to? What am I seeing? But that final descent into the basement can't be stressed enough how much this had to work, because this is what everything has been building towards. And it's like I said in the direction, Myrick and Sanchez just holding the nerve that this is going to work, and that everyone remembers that one line of dialogue despite everything we've seen since, because otherwise this is no ending at all. But even now, I still find myself holding my breath when she makes those last steps. Her sanity is gone by this point. I mean, she's just shrieking, and you just hear the wind whipping through this empty building, and the whole sequence is laced with so much dread. What are you going to see? How can this end in a satisfying way? And it's pulled off to complete perfection. I will never, ever forget my reaction to this ending. The slow pan round, the shot of Mike, and my head just going, is that Mike in the corner? Mike's in the corner. Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
And then, bang, something gets Heather. Camera rolls on for a few more seconds. Cut to credits. Good night, everyone. Sleep tight. Like, brilliant. It's a moment seared onto my brain. I couldn't stop thinking about it for days afterwards. And it's just a guy stood in a corner. But holy shit.
Yeah, it's how many times have we referenced this as well?
Yeah.
Like, any time someone stood in a corner, it's at the end of Blair Witch Project, that.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
Just someone stood in the corner
all the time.
Yeah, because it's got such a resonance.
So as soon as you make the connection, like, fuck.
Yeah.
As soon as you make the connection, though, it cuts to black.
Yeah.
That's
exactly.
the genius of it, because it gives you that couple of moments where the camera's rolling and she's silent, everything's silent, and you go, oh, that's how he made them stand in the corner. And it's like, and you're out. You haven't got time to think about it. Genius. It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
It's Heather creeping around that corner going, Mike. Yeah. And then bang.
Yeah.
Mike.
Fucking hell.
Fuck. Great. That's why I'm not mates with anyone called Mike, just in case that would happen. And Heather and Mike didn't know what was in the basement. Mike was directed to move down there first, with Heather following. Once he got down there, he was told to face the wall in the corner, and when Heather finally got to the basement, they grabbed her camera and dropped it to the ground and shushed her so she stopped screaming. So it is actually real. It happened in real time.
Yeah,
he got there first. Look in the corner, bang, shh, be quiet, that's it, done. Perfect.
Incredible. Yeah, the scene was shot twice, but there was a lot of time in between both takes because Heather couldn't stop hyperventilating.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I'm hyperventilating now in my own house, thinking about it.
Filming wrapped on Halloween 1997. It should have wrapped the day before, but they had a problem with batteries on one of the days, so they overran.
Right.
Was it the Blair Witch conspiring against them to finish on Halloween? Who knows?
The Battery Witch Project.
Michael Williams said that the experience of emerging from those woods, having been surrounded by the lore of the Blair Witch, and now he's surrounded by people dressed up as witches for Halloween, was quite jarring.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
And Eduardo Sanchez remembered walking back into town from that final day shoot in the middle of the night and saying, "We're nobodies, we have no track record, but we're doing something right now that Spielberg could probably never do." Massive statement. That's like something I would say. There was no anticipation that they would garner any success, but he said, at least we're doing something unique, which is exactly what they were doing. And he's absolutely right. Spielberg wouldn't do anything like this.
No. Yeah. But in his wildest dreams,
No,
there's no
definitely not.
way he could have anticipated this taking off.
But after test screenings, there was some confusion about what the ending actually meant. So Artisan paid for production to go back into the woods and film 3 alternatives. They do all still finish in the basement, but the final image of Mike changes. One of them, he's hanging by his neck in the corner. And the second, he's been crucified on the wall. And the third is where he's in the corner, but facing Heather as she comes in, suggesting he's been the instigator of everything all along.
Yeah, I mean, they are online, you can see them.
Yep.
Nothing much changes, and I think the continuity, considering they had to just go back into the woods, having shot this a long time ago,
Yeah.
they ultimately decided that the original worked the best.
Yeah.
Thematically, it fits because we're told that story about the kids facing the wall at the start, like you've mentioned, Matt.
Yeah, exactly.
But to make reference to it, they did film another talking head scene into the start of the film where that guy talks about Rustin Parr making one of the kids face the corner.
Yes.
Right.
Because that wasn't in initially.
Oh, well,
No.
there you
So
go.
they've come back to make it.
Yeah.
So, I think Artisan said, we need something else.
Which
and I think
does
that's
work.
creatively, that's the right choice.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
So with a film of this magnitude, it seems appropriate to have one of the greatest final scenes in horror movie history.
Reception and awards.
It is a film and equated to 8 months in the editing suite, cutting down 19 hours of footage.
A month a day.
Bloody
Even after filming had wrapped, the original idea for the Blair Witch Project was to structure it like an episode of In Search Of that Dan Myrick was talking about. A full documentary footage of Heather, Mike and Josh would only cover a small percentage of the runtime.
Yeah.
The rest would be a history of the Blair Witch, friends, family, a detective hired by Heather's mother analysing the footage that Heather, Mike and Josh had shot. But when the filmmakers reviewed the footage in the editing suite, they realised they had something quite special on their hands, enough for a full feature.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the other footage was repurposed for the full documentary The Curse of the Blair Witch, which ran on the Sci-Fi Channel on the 12th of July, 2 days prior to the release of this film. It served as a nice companion piece to the film and also strengthened the lore and mythology of the Blair Witch, just to keep that really on the level, which people bought into massively, and reinforce the notion that this was actually real.
Yeah, it's a bloody good documentary as well.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
great.
It goes hand in hand brilliantly.
Yeah.
Myrick knew a TV producer named John Pearson and showed him a kind of 8-minute investor trailer that he pulled together to get money in the first place. Pearson loved it and included it on his Bravo TV show special Split Screen. And that created quite the buzz online, which led to the Blair Witch website.
Right.
And it really did have one of the best marketing campaigns in movie history, because the internet was in its infancy. Smartphones were obviously just so far off in the future, not even a consideration. Same for social media, and it just took advantage of all that. Eduardo Sanchez built the website, which provided a timeline of historic events, and that all added to the mythology of the Blair Witch and the missing trio.
Yeah.
Due to positive responses all around, the filmmakers submitted the film to be screened at Sundance Film Festival.
Right.
And to their surprise, it got accepted.
And after it got accepted, after a huge response at the midnight screening of Sundance, the film became the buzz film of the Sundance Film Festival. Artisan purchased the film for $1.1 million a few hours after the screening.
Wow.
Be a few minutes for me. As soon as the credits kicked in, how much do you want? 1.2. I'll have that. And it ended up pumping in a few $100,000 into post-production and really focused on an aggressive marketing campaign, which played on the fact that the events in the film are actually real. And yeah, they did a great job with that.
Amazing. Stuff of legend.
So this meant redesigning the website and focusing hard on that. And when they got the film into Cannes, they mocked up those iconic missing flyers to continue the buzz. But they had to insist that the actors stay out of the limelight to maintain the facade. And it wasn't until the film was out that they started doing talk shows and the like and proper interviews.
Yeah. They were told just stay out of the media.
Yeah.
The film became viral before viral was even a thing, really. The website got 160 million hits by August 1999, 7 months after premiering at Sundance and only a month after the US release. Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it Heather's mum was getting like sent condolence cards and stuff?
Yeah.
Is that true? Yeah.
From people who thought that her daughter was dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dear me.
But Sanchez and Myrick were adamant that they never lied to anyone about the film. Sanchez said, we've always thought that if you trick people into the theatre and then they find out it's not real, they're going to be really, really angry, which I totally agree with.
Yeah.
And Myrick was very aware that not pushing it too far and being accused of being hoaxers, I think that was really important for them, how they sold the film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's all well and good, but Artisan did manage to persuade IMDb to list the 3 actors as missing, presumed dead on their site.
Yeah.
So,
We don't want to lie to anyone, but they are dead.
Yeah.
but the filmmakers maintain that if you scratch the surface even just a little bit, you could find out the truth. For example, on their website, it made it clear it was just a film. Made it very clear.
Yeah, yeah.
But that didn't stop the groundswell of interest and attention in the film. And I guess people wanted to believe in the macabre and went along for the ride.
Mm-hmm.
After the New York premiere, Greg Hale's girlfriend worked at a photo processing place and was looking at photos from the premiere. And her co-worker asked him, where were they taken? And she said, it's one of the Blair Witch parties. And she said, I feel really bad for those kids. And Greg Hale's girlfriend said, no, it's fake. My boyfriend was producer on the movie. He's a picture of Josh, Heather, and Mike a week ago. And she said, no, those are actors that they played the kids. The kids are really dead.
Right. Wow.
Okay.
So people really thought this.
Yeah.
After the festival circuit, the Blair Witch Project was finally released on the 14th of July, 1999. On an eventual $600,000 budget, it grossed just short of $250 million.
Boom.
Have that.
Yeah.
Still one of the most profitable films ever made.
Yeah.
Critics loved it as well. Rolling Stone said that it was a groundbreaker in fright that reinvents scary for the new millennium.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Variety said that the Blair Witch Project puts a clever modern twist on the universal fear of dark and things that go bump in the night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And finally, what did the big man give it? Roger Ebert out of 4?
3.
Yeah, I think he would have admired what they're doing, and 3 sounds right.
Oh, he gave it a big time 4 out of 4.
Really?
All the way
Big
to the top.
Wow.
And he said it was an extraordinarily effective horror film, which, of course, it is.
Which
It is.
Yep.
Yes.
So big with critics and with audiences, but what about the awards circuit? Initially, it fared very well. It won the John Cassavetes Award at the Independent Spirit Awards.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant. But then it all went downhill. As mentioned, Heather Donahue got a Worst Actress Award at the Razzies. The film was also nominated for Worst Film. And at the, we've all heard this movie awards ceremony. It's one of the big ones. At the Stinkers Bad Movie Awards, it won Biggest Disappointment and got a further 3 nominations for Worst Picture, Worst Actress, and Worst Screen Debut, which was shared between Heather, Mike, Josh, The Stick People, and the world's longest-running batteries. Assholes.
Yeah. That whole awards wins the worst awards award for me.
They must think they're so clever.
Yeah. Oh, aren't we so funny? No,
I mean, it's established in the first 10 minutes that they've got loads of batteries out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you want seen showing them changing their batteries?
Exactly.
It's mental.
Yeah.
And now it has 86% on Rotten Tomatoes and a surprisingly low 6.5 out of 10 on IMDb. However, as it's divisive, not that surprising.
It's very divisive.
Yes.
Well, you can't win them all, but
No.
the Blair Witch's place in history was already guaranteed before the Stinker Awards had their say.
Yeah.
Sequels and influence.
A huge film, one of the most impactful ever. So, Matt, in the years since its release in the last 25 years, the Blair Witch Project's influence, what's its legacy?
There's very, very few films you can pick and go, that started the genre. And yes, some came before, the likes of Cannibal Holocaust, etc. But Cannibal Holocaust, that one has a story outside the footage in that film.
Yeah.
This one, the footage is the film from beginning to end. And, where you saw with all the imitators that came after it, it's entirely a genre of its own now, down to this one film.
Yes.
So, pretty big legacy. And
Huge.
in the horror genre, at least 3 moments that you'd put up there as 3 the scariest moments in a horror film, I would say. So, yeah, absolutely huge legacy.
Yeah, I mean, everything that you fellas have said really changed the game, changed people's perceptions of how movies could be cast, shot, marketed. It tapped into and popularized the found footage genre. I mean, like you were saying, Matt, the genre itself was there,
Yeah.
but nobody was talking about it.
No, it wasn't mainstream.
No, not at all. It dated back to the early 60s, a film called The Connection about heroin addicts, considered the first film in the medium. Most commonly found in the horror genre, of course, Cannibal Holocaust, like you said, from 80 is probably considered the first found footage horror film. Last broadcast came out in 98, which is very similar to Blair Witch. Mm-hmm. But none of them caught fire like Blair Witch. Before this film, there were roughly 10 found footage films in existence. In the whole of cinema history.
Yeah.
10
in the 25 years since, there have been close to 200 found footage movies. There's your legacy.
There you go.
There's like 10 a month now, isn't there?
Yeah. Good, bad, or indifferent. And we've got our final Patreon question to uncover the great found footage films.
Okay.
So firstly, from Nathan Lang, he says, thank you for all your work in giving us inarguably the best film podcast there is. There's a reason why I'm choosing these questions. Thank you, Nathan.
Well, we'll take that.
Nathan asked, Blair Witch might not be the first found footage film, but it certainly kicked off a trend that continues 25 years on. My personal favourite is the scientifically accurate found footage film set in space, Europa Report. What are some of your favourites? Brackets, Westy is only allowed to pick 3. Brilliant.
He knows me too well.
So my top 3 are, in no particular order, Wreck, the Spanish 2007 infection spreading masterpiece.
Yep.
Same.
One Location, absolute terror. Mm-hmm. If you haven't seen it, you're missing out.
It's fucking terrifying.
It's magnificent.
Great. Yep.
Jesus Christ, it's so scary.
Second is The Poughkeepsie Tapes, a film that was held back by MGM for unknown reasons, but one watch might suggest why.
Oh, okay.
It's a 4 documentaries stitching in serial killers' home movies with interviews with psychologists, police, and the like.
Yeah.
There are some unforgettably scary moments in it.
Some brilliant moments in that.
And finally, Hell House LLC from 2015.
Nice.
A Halloween haunted house of a movie with some really skin-crawling moments. Sequels are decent. There was a one from last year, but the original is the best.
Nice.
Okay.
And Matt, what about you?
Yep, so my 3, again, no particular order, but 3 that really just stick in my mind. One from a couple of years ago was a lockdown horror, Host, where it is a seance conducted over Zoom. Really clever use of Zoom and split screens. Really, really interesting one. That pretty really terrifying. Good. One called The Borderlands, which is set in Scotland, and it's 2 people who work for the church, and they sent to this church to investigate it because there's been paranormal activity happening there. Really, really creepy, and it's got an ending that has to be seen to be believed. It really goes somewhere very strange. And the last one I wanted to mention is Willow Creek.
Yes.
Which is about a couple that go out on a hunt to find Bigfoot. Things do not end well. But the reason I wanted to bring this up, obviously, Blair Witch has a very famous scene in the tent. Willow Creek has a similar one, except the difference is they don't leave the tent, and it's about 20 minutes long, and it's just pure terror. It's fantastically well done. Directed by Bob Goldthwait. Unbelievable. Yeah, he's made some interesting films.
He's done some great films,
Excellent. And Westy, do we have any crossover here?
I had one crossover, but I went for some that was maybe not as big of a hit, but big of a hits for me that I really enjoyed from this genre. I think Wreck is number 1 because
it's incredible.
It is what it is. It takes this and it ramps it up to 11. It's the Spinal Tap of Blair Witch. The 2 that really resonated with me was Unfriended from 2014.
Okay, yeah.
All right.
Which was all about people just being online and murders happening as they're talking to each other. And I really, really enjoyed that film. I don't think it's going to go down as one of the best films ever made, but I think just using that medium, it works really, really well. Lake Mungo.
Brilliant.
2008.
Brilliant.
Which is very, very strange. And it's just wonderful how they introduce new footage in different ways.
Yeah.
Lake Mungo and Unfriended, if you haven't seen them, definitely.
Yeah. So with something as popular as The Blair Witch, naturally attention focuses on a sequel pretty much straight away. Artisan were quick to move with their hot new IP and approached Merrick and Sanchez. They had ideas for a second film, namely a prequel, possibly focusing on the Rustin Parr story. Artisan eventually said yes to them, but this was in December 99, and Artisan wanted the film out in October 2000. The
Right.
turnaround was far too quick. So Mirek and Sanchez steps aside because they just didn't have anything but a basic outline for the story and wanted the Blair Witch hype machine to die down first. Artisan weren't having any of it and pressed it on without them. An incredibly ballsy thing to do from Mirek and Sanchez. May not ever get a shot like this again, and they didn't, but they kept their integrity.
Yeah.
So instead of Sanchez and Mirek, we got the Joe Berlinger-directed Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2 in 2000. Then there was a big gap, and in 2016 we got the Adam Wingard-directed Blair Witch, both directed by two people who had a great pedigree.
Yes.
So, thoughts on the sequels, Westy?
I don't know. I was left a little bit empty because they just lack the humanity of the first one. The peril of the first one, I think, is you feel like you're part of it. Especially the second one. I think it does a really good job of trying to pull you into the story, but at the same time, I feel quite detached from it.
Right.
It's almost like a parody of what I've seen before.
Yes.
There's so much depth to the first one. There's so much honesty to the first one. And trying to recreate that, it just becomes something where it's just almost like, you want Leslie Nielsen to pop up at some point. Just like, it's all right, everything's fine, And I just get that disassociation from the sequels. Like you said, Luke, lightning can't strike twice.
Nope.
And it struck first, and I bought it. I get it, but I don't really want it in my life.
Yeah, I don't think you're the only one. What about you, Matt? Do you care for any of the sequels? Have you seen them?
Yeah, I've seen them. I mean, the first one, Joe Berlinger is an interesting choice because he's a documentarian, really.
Very
so
much.
It's an interesting
Natural
twist. Yeah, let's get him in. And there's like the germ of a good idea in there by making it very meta about it being about the success of Blair Witch and people going to see the film and locations. But that's all it is. It's a germ of an idea.
It's not scary, though, is it?
It's not scary at all.
That premise isn't scary.
It's the typical thing of they had the release date first before they had an actual idea, which is never a good order to have
It's
a film.
all money.
No.
It is all money. Doesn't add anything to the original. It's very kind of cliched by the book horror stuff once the spooky stuff starts happening. So yeah, it could have gone somewhere really interesting, but just for how quickly it was rushed out, just didn't really have any kind of interest, really. I've never revisited since.
Well, I've got two big claims here. I think, firstly, the Blair Witch world is one of the biggest missed opportunities in movie history.
Right.
The mythology's already there. The infrastructure is laid down for you. Nobody wants it. Second big claim, Book of Shadows, probably the worst sequel ever made.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
I kind of agree with that. Yeah.
Okay.
If you consider the hype and what the first film represents, everything we've discussed, and then we get this a year later. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Like you said, Matt, it starts off quite well. That opening scene, it's set in Burkittsville. It discusses the impact the film had on the town.
Yeah.
But then, it's a tragedy of a film. It's cheap-looking trash with bad effects and worse acting, and the plot is nothing.
No.
Nothing. I actually don't mind the third film.
Right.
Because I search horror films, Google horror films, Google feed will always tell me about new films that are coming up.
Yeah.
And I was tracking this film called The Woods that I had cottoned onto coming in September, and I was very excited about it. But then the rug was pulled from under me when The Woods was just a working title, and there was the reveal that it was the new Blair Witch film. You can imagine what I was like.
Oh, yeah. Kid in a candy store.
Yeah, very excited.
Yeah.
I didn't like it initially, but I've seen it a couple of times since. It isn't bad. It's no Blair Witch. But then what is these days, though, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And we have had the news in the last few months that the film series is going to get rebooted under the dependable Blumhouse banner. So all is not lost, potentially.
No.
But if we're talking about a once-in-a-lifetime, game-changing horror, the effects of which can still be felt 25 years on, nothing could ever come close to the original Blair Witch Project.
No.
No.
All the right movies ranking.
So a reveal almost as chilling as the Blair Witch herself. It's the ATRM ranking. Matt, your summary and score for the Blair Witch Project, please.
It's just such a real lightning in a bottle stuff, this one. They couldn't have made it a couple of years earlier, and they certainly couldn't have made it a couple of years later. It was absolutely right concept at the right time, and that concept is executed flawlessly from the film itself to the marketing campaign. It's one of those rare films where, when I think about it, there's more than the film itself. that I consider part of it and part of the enjoyment of it. And yes, it's divisive, but even if you hate this film, you simply can't deny its place and its influence in the horror genre. And what makes it all more special to me is it was just made by two nobodies who have gone on, all due respect to them, they've gone on to do nothing of note since. But they just had that one idea. They just had that spark to go, we can use the internet for this in a really interesting way. And they pulled it off to perfection. I think the three cast members take method acting to another level entirely. And I think Donahue in particular, you know, she's obviously out of the business now. She seems in a much happier place, but I hope she can reflect and ignore all the nonsense about the Razzies.
Yeah, same.
Just realise what a brave, raw and honest performance she gave. I think she's incredible in this.
Yeah, well said.
Underneath all that, just getting at the very heart of it, I just think it's incredibly scary. When they're in the woods, I'm in the woods with them. Their fear is palpable and infectious, and there are moments in this I'll never forget how I felt the first time I saw them, and it's not lost a bit of power for me. So for me, it's a pivotal film for my relationship with horror cinema. It's something I wish I'd had the balls to think of this and make instead. So it's an absolute 10 out of 10 for me.
Yes, unsurprising, Matt, and mine isn't going to come as a surprise at all either. I haven't had one bad word to say about the film in the last 3 hours or so. So this is reflective in my score. There hasn't been a film like this in the last 25 years. There'll likely not be another in the next 25.
No.
It still has the power to transfix and terrify me, and which is no mean feat. Lightning in a bottle, like you said, Matt, with maverick directors and a hugely, and you know, in retrospect, underappreciated cast. It's a benchmark horror film sitting right at the top table, and it's an easy 10 for me.
Wonderful.
And what about you, Westy?
I'll put it down to this. If anyone hasn't seen this film, and you can show anyone 10 minutes of this film, any point, they want to see this film.
Yes.
They want to know what it's about. And that, to me, is an absolute revelation, because I don't know any other film where you can just stick 10 minutes on at any point through the film and you'll say, do you want to see more of this? Yeah, absolutely. Because it is so original in its delivery. It's so original in its inception, and so original in the way that they presented it. And you have got to give it full marks, because there's nothing like the Blair Witch Project. And you talk to people and say, Blair Witch Project, yeah, oh, it's a great film. I'm going to watch it because I saw the poster. Like, I saw the poster. It is literally the movie version of, like, Iron Maiden. Like, when I pick up an Iron Maiden album cover, I'm like, I'm fucking listening to that. And it's visual, and it's exciting, and I'm getting into it, and I don't give a fuck who likes it or who doesn't. So, yeah, it's an absolute 10 all day.
So, 3 big 10s, and now our fourth and final score for the Blair Witch Project, which comes from our followers on X, formerly Twitter.
Yeah.
Here we go.
I don't think we've ever had such a polarising film.
I know.
Not surprising the slightest, but here we go.
This one's going to be difficult, isn't it? Yeah.
I picked out some choice comments on the positive side of things, first of all. From Scott Cannon, at Scotty Did It, who said 10, but I'm biased, but I'm from pretty much the same part of Maryland. The movie came out right before my senior year of high school, so naturally we went camping in the woods near where it was supposed to take place. Definitely added to our excitement.
Oh, wow.
Brilliant.
Amazing, Scotty.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Yeah.
Janie at Crystal Spurs said 10, pulled in by the groundbreaking marketing, and the cinema experience didn't disappoint. The final shot of Mike still haunts me to this day.
Yep.
Michael Keyswetter at Jiggy Keys said, Blair Witch Project is the reason why I stopped watching scary movies. The film legitimately petrified me. I had to sleep with the lights on for days after seeing it, out of fear of someone standing in the corner of my bedroom staring at the wall. My blood ran cold for a while watching it.
Amazing.
Wow. Okay. It's good it makes that kind of an impact, though. It's a proper horror film.
Yes. But then here comes Westy on the other side of the fence. We've got from DRJ at Dean Reese Jones. Now you'll recognise that name.
Yes.
Dean has been a long time listener and is a patron of ours. So what up, Dean?
Here we go.
He says, because it's only 10,987, X only offers those as options.
Yeah.
He says, I can't rate it a 7 because that's too high. I thought it was hot garbage at the time. We'll probably rewatch it after listening to the pod, though, and we'll see if my perception changes.
It's going to change.
It's going to change,
Good to
Dean.
know. Fair enough.
Yeah, let us know. From Polly Valentine at pvalentine592, she said, I think I'm in the minority. I don't think you are, Polly. I gave it a big fat 0.
Oh, really?
When I finished watching it, my first thought was, I'd just lost some time I could have used to do something good.
That's a shame.
That is a shame.
That's a shame.
Okay.
And George Smith at George Smith67. George has followed us on X, formerly Twitter, for years. So hello,
Yes.
George.
Hello, George, mate.
George says, vastly overrated. Only the final moment registers with dread. Shame. Gotta hype your critics, though.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what do you think the Blair Witch Project got out of 10 on X?
On
lads?
X, 8.5.
It'll be low. I'll go 7.5.
Oh, Matt. Out of the park.
Oh.
7.5 out of 10.
Wow.
Low score.
Low score.
So overall, that gives the Blair Witch Project a total score of 37.5 out of 40.
Yeah.
2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Boom.
Join us again in All the Right Movies. In 2 weeks, John, Westy and Matt will be going on board Apollo 13 to bring you the behind-the-scenes story of that classic.
Definitely. Yeah.
A long time coming, fellas.
A
Excited?
long time coming. Yeah.
Yes, we're finally strapped in, ready for the big launch.
Let's do it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And if that wasn't enough, every 2 weeks alternate to this show, you've also got new episodes of Showreel, which gives you a snippet of our conversation from a podcast in our archive. If you like what you hear, sign up on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or patreon.com, where you can also get new episodes of Double Feature and The Watch List, as explained at the top.
Absolutely.
Yes.
If you do love the show and if you've come this far, I think it's a fair bet. Please give us a positive rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, and any other streaming platform you use.
Yes,
We'd
please.
love it if that positive rating was 5 stars.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We are firing on all cylinders, and social media is no exception. On X/Twitter, we are at ATRightMovies. We post all day, every day, including our unbelievable making of movie threads.
Unbelievable as well.
All of our information that we use comes from cast and crew or is verified by at least 3 sources.
There we are.
Just like
Beautiful.
our podcast, Westy.
Yep, unbelievable.
See, we had Dan Myrick on A Life in Movies a couple of months ago.
Exactly.
Verified information. On Instagram and Threads, we are at all_right_movies. On TikTok, search at all the right movies. Join our Facebook group, which is getting bigger by the day,
Yep.
with some great movie chat and some great people.
Great guys, yeah.
On Blue Sky, we are at alltherightmovies.com. We are on YouTube as well. Our videos are going up in their entirety and regularly, so if you could check them out, like them if you like them, subscribe to us, that would be great. That's youtube.com/alltherightmovies.
Yes, please.
And our website is alltherightmovies.com.
It is.
Yes.
And that is a wrap, everyone. We're going camping tonight. Hopefully we don't get any blue jelly shit all over our shit.
I'm going to get me nipples out.
Come back in 2 weeks for Apollo 13, everyone. Thank you for listening.
Yes, thank
Thanks,
you so
guys.
much, guys.
Happy Halloween.
Be careful in them woods.
Sleep well.